Hi students, welcome to PhD Jobs and Admission. This is Gauri, and in today's session I'm going to teach you about most expected research methodology PYQs of PhD entrance test at Pondicherry University. As all of you know that your exams will be on 12th and 13th August 2023, and that's why I'm taking this session to practice all of you all the most expected research methodology PYQs, and all of these are the PYQs of 2018, 19 and 2020 years. And this video will really very helpful to all the candidates because most of the PYQs are going to be asked repetitively in the entrance exams, and you can also understand it by viewing this video. Okay, so students, you need to watch this video until the end so that all of your doubts will get clear, as well all of your concepts will get clear, as well all of you can revise all the topics in a single session only. Okay, so students, now let us begin with this video. All of you know that there is PhD entrance test at Pondicherry University on 12th and 13th August, and in this PhD entrance test they will ask you 50% MCQs on research methodology and 50% MCQs on concerned subject. So you need to score 50% marks so that you can qualify the PhD entrance test. For qualifying this PhD entrance test, we provide research methodology complete course to all the students so that they can qualify it. In this complete course, we provide full syllabus video lectures under which theory and MCQ lecture series are available. We provide full syllabus notes and mock tests. We have 10 mock tests like this. Each mock test contains 40 MCQs. That's why overall all of you can solve 400 MCQs. We provide more than 1500 MCQs revision PDF, and as well more than 100 solved PYQs PDF. By solving all of this PDF, you can revise all the topics in a single PDF, and you will get 80% MCQs from these PDFs only out of 100% MCQs in the research methodology section of the PhD entrance test. And that's why students, by solving all of these PDFs, you can practice more often MCQs, and most of the PYQs are going to be asked repetitively. That's why it will be really very helpful to all the students. The topics that I have mentioned on the screen, on all of these topics we provide complete course. Okay, because on all of these topics they will ask you research methodology under section questions in PhD entrance test. Okay, so students, if you want to buy this complete course, then you can either download the Global Online app from the Play Store. For that I have given the link in the description box of this video, or else you can contact me through the WhatsApp numbers that I have shown on the screen. And the course fees are only 699, and in this low fees we provide guaranteed selection to all the candidates. So students, this complete course is really helpful, which is a revision package, and from this revision package you can do the study of research methodology only in within 2 to 3 days, and you can guaranteed qualify the PhD entrance test, and it is possible. Okay, multi-stage sampling is a dash. Now what is multi-stage sampling, probability sampling, non-probability sampling, stratified sampling? None of these. So students, multi-stage sampling is a sampling technique, and this is a method of obtaining sample from population by splitting the population into smaller and smaller groups at every stage, and we take the samples of individuals from smallest resulting groups. Okay, so multi-stage sampling is nothing but a subtype of cluster sampling, and this is a complex cluster sampling, and it is very useful whenever we want to select the sample from the very large population size and very large population from very large geographical areas. Okay, so as all of we know that cluster sampling is a type of what, probability sampling. That's why here your correct answer should be what, probability sampling. That is answer 1. Okay, testing hypothesis is a, now what is testing hypothesis? Inferential statistics, descriptive statistics, data preparation, data analysis. So students, testing hypothesis is nothing but what, you are testing the predictive statement of your research outcomes. So hypothesis is nothing but what, a research outcome, and you are predicting this research outcome by using stating the hypothesis, and you are testing this hypothesis by using different statistical techniques. So within the inferential statistics, basically what you do, whatever inferences you make about your research, and you basically test these inferences by using different statistical methods. For example, t test, for example f test, there are certain non parametric tests as well, so you use these techniques. That's why within the inferential statistics also, you are basically what, testing the hypothesis itself. That's why here your correct answer should be what, 1. And if you remember, this question has been asked in 2018, 19 and 20 also, so it is more probability that it will be asked in this year as well. Okay, within the descriptive statistics, you basically describe the data. For example, you describe the data through the different modes of central tendencies, then modes of dispersion, then also by using different graphical methodologies like histogram, ogive, etc. Okay, data preparation is one of the step in data analysis, under which you convert the raw data into a proper error free data so that you can analyze that data. Within the data analysis technique, you basically convert the raw data into the error less data, and you basically analyze that data. Within the analysis technique, basically you decode the data so that you can find out the meaning from the raw data. Okay, so here your correct answer should be what, 1. We also provide Pondicherry University PhD entrance test paper to study material. By using this study material, all the students can score more marks in the paper 2, that is in concerned subject. So in this study material, we provide basically full syllabus notes and MCQs. In the MCQ section, we provide most expected MCQs and PYQs. Okay, so by solving all of these MCQs and PYQs, all the students can guaranteed score more marks in the respective subjects and in the paper 2 basically. Okay, so students, the subjects that I have mentioned on the screen, we provide paper to study material on all of these subjects currently. If you want study material for any other subject, then you can ask me in the comment box. Paper to study material fees are only 999, and in this low fees we provide guaranteed selection to all the students. Okay, so students, to join our courses, you can contact me through the WhatsApp numbers that I have mentioned on the screen. This paper to study material will be helpful to qualify the PhD entrance test, as well it will be helpful to qualify the interview session, because within the interview session examiners will ask you most of the questions on your concerned research topic. Okay, research conducted to find solution for an immediate problem is what? Now students, what is the type of research under which we do it so that we can find solution for an immediate problem? So whether it is fundamental research, analytical research, survey research, then action research. So students, within the fundamental research, basically we make up a law, then theory or any kind of a principle. Basically we grab the knowledge, we make up our knowledge in the fundamental research. For example, Newton's laws of motion, like Newton make a law of motion in his theory or in his research, which is called as what, fundamental research, that is pure research or basic research. Okay, within the analytical research, the data that you analyze, so basically you study that analytical data. Okay, within the survey you ask the questions to your respondents, and respondents will give the answer. Within the action research, basically you do this in a classroom setting, and teachers do it so that they can improve the teaching and learning process, so that they can study the teaching and learning process. And action research can be done to find out solution for an immediate problem. That's why here your correct answer should be what, 4, as the action research can be done in classroom settings, so that the results of the action research can't be generalizable to other situations which are outside the classroom setting. Okay, so this is what is your answer. The ethical guidelines for social science research was charted by dash. Now from these organizations, which is the organization which has discovered or charted the ethical guidelines for social science research?
So whether it is ICMR, whether it is ICSSR, whether it is ILO, whether it is JNU. Now let us see what are these organizations. ICMR is nothing but what? Indian Council of Medical Research. Okay, so in this organization, or this organization is basically responsible for doing the research in medical science field. ICSSR is what? This is Indian Council of Social Science Research. Okay, so as you know that Indian Council of Social Science Research is relevant to what? Social science research. That's why this is the organization who has charted the ethical guidelines for social science research. JNU is nothing but what? University, that is Jawaharlal Nehru University. Okay, which of the following is not a scaling technique? Now from these options, which is the option which is not a scaling technique that we use in research methodology? Lickard's, Thurston's, Gutman, none of these. So students, all of these are the scaling techniques that we use in research methodology. That's why here your correct answer should be 4, that is none of these. Dash is the first step of research process. Formulation of a problem, collection of data, editing and coding, selection of a problem. So students, in every kind of a research process, the first step is to identify the research problem. And for the identification of research problem, you need to select the problem. After selection of the problem, you formulate the problem so that you can concisely test it by forming the hypothesis based upon it. That's why here your correct answer should be what? 4, that is selection of a problem. Before formulation of a problem, selection of a problem is very much essential, and this is your first step. The comprehensive full report of the research process is called. Now the comprehensive full report of the research process is called as what? Thesis, summary, abstract, article. So students, as you know that thesis is nothing but what? Dissertation, right? And all of we did dissertation or thesis in our master's degree. Within the thesis, whatever you do in your research process, you do the descriptive part of it, and you basically give the description about it. And that's why thesis is nothing but a comprehensive full report of the research process. You give the information about whatever you have did, okay, in the research process. So basically you describe the most important steps of your research process in the thesis, and this is nothing but what? A full report of the research process. Summary is nothing but a summary, right? Abstract is nothing but a summary of the major parts of the research process, under which you give the summary about the purpose of the research, then summary about the methods that you used, and summary about the result section. And article is nothing but what? A research article in which you also describe your research process, but you don't give the comprehensive full report of the research process in the research article. That's why here your correct answer should be 1. Identify the dependent variable in the given statement. Now here they have given you a statement, and you need to identify the dependent variable from this statement. Impact of monthly per capita income on the anthropometric measurements of preschool children. So students, dependent variable is the variable which depends on independent variable, okay, and it is also called as effect variable. So if you see this statement, then impact of monthly per capita income is there. So impact of means what? Effect of. It means that there is effect of monthly per capita income on something. That's why here PCI would be your independent variable, because independent variable does not depend on anything, and basically it affects the dependent variable. And that's why here anthropometric measurements of the preschool children is nothing but what? Your dependent variable, because it is changing its values based upon monthly per capita income. So if you see these options, PCI, anthropometric measurements, both PCI and anthropometric measurements, none of these, then you will understand that here your correct answer should be what? 2, that is anthropometric measurements. Questionnaire is now questionnaire is what? Research method, measurement technique, tool for data collection, data analysis technique. So students, questionnaire is an instrument and it is useful to collect the data, and in this you have basically open ended and closed ended questions, and you asked these questions to your respondents so that you will get the answers from your respondents. That's why you are getting the data from your respondents by using questionnaire instrument, and that's why questionnaire is nothing but a tool for data collection. It is not a research method, because research method is the concept that we use which basically has both, that is data collection method and data analysis method, but questionnaire is only a tool for data collection. Okay. Mean, median, mode are. Now what are mean, median and mode entities? Measures of deviation, ways of sampling, measures of central tendency, none of these. So students, mean means what? Average of the whole data set. Median means what? Middle value of the data set whenever you order the data in either ascending or descending order. Mode is nothing but what? The value which has the highest frequency, right? And if you see all of these entities, then you will understand that all of these three entities describe the central position data, and that's why these are nothing but what? Measures of central tendency. So this is your correct answer. Okay. Measures of deviation means measures of dispersion, and the examples of those are range, variance, standard deviation, mean deviation. Okay. Ways of sampling means what methods you are doing for selecting the sample, like probability sampling methods, non-probability sampling methods and their subsequent types. So here your correct answer should be 3. 50th percentile of a distribution coincides with its. Now you have a data distribution, and from that you are taking out the 50th percentile, then that 50th percentile coincides with what entity of a distribution? Mean, median, mode, quartile. So students, basically let us see first of all of these options. Mean means what? Average of a whole data set, right? Median means what? The middle value of the distribution whenever you order it in ascending or descending order. Mode means what? A data set having highest frequency, and quartile is nothing but a measures of distribution. Okay. So students, 50th percentile of a distribution means what? The half of the value of the whole distribution at the 50th percentile. So below this value there will be half of the data values of the distribution, and from this there will be half of the data values of the distribution. So exactly the similar concept it is there with the median. That's why here your correct answer should be what? Median, because median is nothing but the middle value of a distribution, right? And because of this middle value, okay, the half of the values below this middle value, okay, comes under half, okay, of a distribution, and the half of the values will be there higher the middle value. So exactly this is nothing but what? The 50th percentile of a distribution. So it coincides with its what? Median. Okay. The diagram used to estimate mode graphically is. So whenever you want to estimate the mode graphically, then what diagram you can use? Whether you will use histogram, frequency curve, ogive, bar diagram. So students, now let us see one by one all of these graphical representations. Histogram is used to represent the continuous variables. Okay, continuous variables, and that's why it will be seen like this. Okay, like this. So there is no space between these bars because this is actually representing the continuous variables. Okay, frequency curve is the curve which describes the frequency of the data values. Ogive is nothing but a cumulative frequency distribution, and from this you can estimate the relationship between the rankings or the scores of the variables. Bar diagram is a bar graph, and it is basically representing the categorical variables. So if you see all of these options, then mode is nothing but what? The data value having the highest frequency, right? So it can be graphically estimated by using histogram. Okay, within the histogram it is showing the representation of continuous variables. So the bar graph which having the highest length basically represents the mode of the data distribution. Okay. The purpose of developing a conceptual framework for research is to, so students, whenever we develop a conceptual framework for research, what is the purpose behind it? Interpret the theory, test the theory, organize the research, explain the theory. So students, conceptual framework for research means the outline for research. So within the outline of research, basically we describe the research design. So whatever you are going to do in the whole research process, the outline or the way of doing the research process you describe in this. So you describe exactly what type of data collection methods and data analysis methods you are going to use in your research process. That's why the main purpose of developing a conceptual framework for research is to organize the research. Because organize the research means what? You are making the design of the research. Okay, you can also interpret the theory and explain the theory, okay, by using conceptual framework for research, but these are not the main purposes of it. But the main purpose of this is nothing but to organize the research. Okay, the following is not a scale of numerical measurement. Now they have given you different options of scale, and from this option, which is a scale which is not a scale of numerical measurement, whether it is nominal scale, whether it is interval scale, whether it is ordinal scale, or whether it is ratio scale. So students, if you see all of these scaling options, then in this scaling options there is only a scale which is not a scale of numerical measurement. It means that from this scale, the scale is not assigning the numerical values to the variables, okay, but it is only giving the names or labeling to the variables, and by the use of this they can categorize the variables into different categories. So this is the only characteristic of nominal scale. That's why here your correct answer should be what? Nominal scale, because within the nominal scale you only label or name the variables and you can categorize the variables. You can't give the numerical values to the variables, and that's why you can't measure them numerically. But if you see all of these scales, that is interval, ordinal and ratio scale, you can basically numerical values can be given in this scale, and you can give the rankings to the variables and you can compare those rankings. Within the ordinal scale, I can understand you can't basically numerically measure the variables, but still you can give the orders to the variables, and according to those orders you can basically compare the variables, and that's why somehow it comes under a scale of numerical measurement. But nominal scale does not at all comes under a scale of numerical measurement. That's why here your correct answer should be what? 1. Which distribution should be used to order in order to find out where certain scores rank relative to all others? So from these options, which is the option or which is the distribution that can be used in order to find out where certain scores rank relative to all other scores? Okay, frequency polygon, probability distribution, grouped frequency distribution, cumulative frequency distribution. So students, we have seen frequency polygon in the question number 1 or 2 in this session. Within the probability distribution, it gives the values under the distribution which has a lot of probability of true population parameter. And if you see cumulative frequency distribution, this is nothing but what? Ogive. Okay, and it gives you the information about number of observation that fall below or at each value in data set, and it can determine the percentile rank of particular score, which indicates percentage of scores in that distribution, okay, that are lower than or equal to that score, and it can be represented by using what? Ogive. So for example, you are going to representing the 90% of distribution or 90% of score in a distribution. It then it means that the scores are actually less than or equal to the 90 percentile. Okay, so according to that you can give the scores, okay, to that distribution or to that data value relative to all others. Okay, so that's why here your correct answer should be what? 4. Which one of these sampling methods is a probability method? Now they have given you different options, and from these different options, which is the sampling method which is a probability method? Quota, judgment, convenience, simple random. So students, probability method means what? You are going to select the samples randomly, right? And if you see all of these options, then you will understand that simple random sampling is the sampling method which comes under a probability sampling method, because within this sampling method you are simply randomly selecting a sample from the target population. Okay, so this is your correct answer. And if you see all of these other options, quota, judgment, convenience, all of these comes under non probability sampling methods, because here you are selecting the samples non-randomly. Okay, within the quota sampling you have the target population, and from the target population you make the subpopulation, and from the subpopulation you are going to select the samples but non-randomly. Okay, within the judgment sampling, researcher have a specific kind of a purpose towards the sample, and because of that purpose he is going to select the sample, and that too purposively. Within the convenience sampling, according to the researcher's convenience, he is going to select the samples. Okay. Triangulative research refers to what? Multiple sources for data collection, quasi-experimental methods related to psychoanalysis, none of these. So students, triangulative research is a research method, and basically it uses multiple data sets. Okay, it uses multiple data sets, it uses multiple theories, it uses multiple methods, as well it uses multiple investigators to address research question, and it is useful to enhance validity and credibility of research findings by checking with different sources. That's why triangulative research is nothing but a method which refers to what? The method which uses multiple sources for data collection to increase the validity and credibility of the research findings. Okay, so triangulative research method can be useful in both, that is quantitative and qualitative research methods, but mostly it is applicable in qualitative research method. Okay, which of the following is not an essential element of report writing? Research methodology, reference, conclusion, none of these. So students, as you know that report writing is nothing but what? Research report writing, and in this you provide the descriptions about major aspects of your research process. So under which you give the title for your research, you give the abstract, right? Then you write the introduction part, then you give the information about literature survey or literature review, then you give the information about what? Research methods or research methodology, then you describe what? The result section, then you conclude all of your results, and then at the last you give the references. So if you see all of these subsections of the research report writing, then you will understand that research methodology, reference, conclusion, all of these are nothing but the essential elements of report writing, because within the research methodology section you can describe the research methods that you have used in your research process. You describe in the reference section and the sources that you have used, and from this you can avoid the plagiarism, as well you can give the credit to the another authors and researchers. So it can increase the credibility of your research report basically. In the conclusion section you can conclude your research results, and you give the further information about the further research to the readers. Okay, that's why here your correct answer should be what? None of these. What is the purpose of doing research? Now students, why we do research? What is the purpose behind it? To identify problem, to find the solution, both to identify problem and to find the solution, none of these. So students, we do research because we need the solution to our problem, and that's why this is one of the most important purpose of doing research. But apart from that, by doing research we can identify the problem. For example, exploratory research, as we have seen, within the exploratory research we don't get basically the solution to our problem, but we get the information about the research problem on which we are basically doing the study, or on which we are going to do the study. So we get the essential information of our research problem by doing exploratory research, and that's why you can clearly identify the research problem by doing such kinds of research. And that's why by doing the research, basically you can identify the research problem, and as well you can find the solution. Okay, basically identifying a research problem by doing research is nothing but a most important characteristic of research, but this is again the purpose of doing research. That's why here your correct answer should be what? 3, that is both to identify problem and to find the solution. Okay, which of the following is non-probability sampling technique? Whether it is snowball, whether it is random, whether it is cluster, whether it is stratified. Now students, they have asked you about from these options which is option which is non-probability sampling technique. So from these options we need to select the option which basically comes under selecting the samples non-randomly. Now this is a homework question to all the students, and all the students have to give me the answer in the comment box. Okay, because we have seen lot of concepts relevant to sampling, its types and everything. So I want the answers from all the students, and if you have any doubt you can ask me in the comment box regarding this question. Okay, a student has scored 80 marks in a test of psychology and 60 marks in statistics. These scores can be compared by converting them into. So students, basically a student has scored 80 marks in a test of psychology subject and 60 marks in a test of statistics subject, and you need to compare the marks in these two subjects. Then what you can do to compare these marks in two subjects, whether you convert them into percentages, categories, standard scores, rank differences. So students, if you see all of these options, then it is really very useful to convert these marks into percentages to compare them, and that's why your correct answer should be 1. If you know the maximum marks in each subject, for example, the maximum marks in psychology and statistics subject is 100, then 80 marks, okay, will be converted into percentage and it would be 80%, and 60 marks will be converted into percentages and they will be 60%. Okay, so you can compare these percentages, okay, if you know the maximum marks in the subjects. So if you see other options like categories, standard scores, rank differences, so students, you can't convert the marks into categories, because marks are itself what? Quantitative entity, and categories are nothing but the qualitative entity. So you can't do this. Then if you see standard scores, then standard score is nothing but a measure of how many standard deviation a score is above or below the mean. And rank differences are nothing but, these are the differences that we can use to compare relative position of scores within group. But here they have exactly given you the values of the marks in different subjects. Okay, and that's why to measure the standard scores, to measure the rank differences is somehow difficult in this case. So these options are going to get what? Eliminated. So that's why your correct answer should be 1, that is percentages. A correlation between x and y is significant. It means that there is a correlation between x and y variables, and this correlation is significant. What is the meaning of this? X causes variation in y, x and y vary together. Y causes variation in x and y vary independently. Okay, so students, if there is a correlation between x and y which is significant, then it means that both the variables basically vary together. Okay, that's why here your correct answer should be what? 2. X and y vary together. So here understand one thing, that There is a correlation between x and y means that these two variables vary together, but it does not mean that x causes variation in y and y causes variation in x. There is no any kind of cause and effect relationship between these variables. There is only relationship between these variables and they basically vary together. Okay, and there is possibility that there is a third variable, let us assume that z, and it causes the variation in x and y, and that's why they are varying together, but it does not mean that x causes variation in y and vice versa. Okay, so understand this, and that's why here your correct answer should be 2. The term positivism is coined by. Now, who was the scientist or sociologist who has discovered the term positivism? Karl Marx, Basil Bernstein, Emile Durkheim, Auguste Comte. Okay, so students, positivism is the research approach or research perspective, or you can think about like it is a philosophical assumption. So in this we assume that the objects that we see and whatever we observe basically are nothing but what? Measurable things, and the things that are observable and that's why measurable are basically what? True in this world. So this is the assumption that we think or assume in the positivism perspective. Okay, and this term was coined by Auguste Comte. Okay, so Auguste Comte was the founder of discipline of sociology and discipline of positive philosophy, and he described epistemological perspective of positivism in his series of texts, Course in Positive Philosophy. So Course in Positive Philosophy was the book which was published between 1830 to 1842, and in this book he has described the term positivism. Okay, so this is your correct answer. Which among the following is not source of data for sociological research? Now students, here they have given you different options, and from these options there is one option which is not a source of data for sociological research. So now let us see the options: government statistics, historical documents, interviewing, experiments. So students, sociological research is nothing but a qualitative research method under which we study the society or the problems in society. Okay, that's why this comes under what? Qualitative research. So if you see all of these options, then government statistics. Now government statistics is the source which provide wealth of information on various aspects of society, such as it gives you information about population demographics, right? Population demographics. Then it gives you information about economic indicators and crime rates as well. Historical documents are the sources which provide valuable insights into social and cultural practices of past societies. Okay, past societies. Then interviewing. So interviewing is the method of data collection, okay, through direct conversation with individuals, and it allows researchers to gather detailed information about people's experiences, opinions and attitudes. And experiments is the data collection method under which we control the variables, we manipulate the variables and check the cause and effect relationship between the variables. So basically experiments is the method of data collection which is preferably used in quantitative research methods, not in qualitative research methods. That's why here your correct answer should be what? 4, because experiments is not source of data for sociological research. But if you see all of these other options, these are the source of data for sociological research. Identify the test which is applied for the situation where an aspiring MBA student wants to compare the salaries offered to the graduates of two business schools. Now here they have asked you the question regarding the situation in which of these t-test you can do. Okay, so what is the situation? Okay, there is an aspiring MBA students and they want to compare the salaries which are offered to the graduates of two business schools. So now for this study, which test these aspiring MBA students will do? One sample t-test, independent samples t-test, dependent samples t-test, t-test. Okay. So students, now in this case, if you see all of these options, then you will understand that independent samples t-test is the best option, because independent samples t-test basically compare means of two independent groups. Okay, means of two independent groups. So if you see here, graduates of two business schools are nothing but what? Two independent groups. I mean to say, two business schools are the two independent groups. They are not depend on each other. And if you want to compare the means of these two business schools, then obviously you can do independent samples t-test. Okay. So in this situation, two groups are graduates of two business schools, and variable is what? Salary offered to graduates. So this salary offered to the graduates is nothing but the variable, and you are going to compare the means of variables, okay, of these two independent groups. Okay, are you getting? And that's why students, this test allow this aspiring MBA student to determine if there is statistically significant difference between average salaries offered to graduates of these two business schools. Okay, that's why in this case you can do, or these MBA aspiring students can do independent samples t-test. And if you see all other options like one sample t-test, so one sample t-test can be done if you want to compare sample mean to known population mean. Okay, if you want to compare sample mean to known population mean, then in this situation you can do one sample t-test. If there is dependent samples t-test, then in this situation you can compare means of two related groups such as before and after measurements or matched pairs, but these are not related groups. These are basically what? Independent groups. That's why in this case you can't do dependent samples t-test, you can't do one sample t-test, but you can do independent samples t-test. And if you see t-test, so t-test refers to all of these t-test. Basically t-test is a large concept, and in this concept there are subtypes of this t-test like one sample t-test, independent samples t-test, dependent samples t-test. So this is also eliminated. So your correct answer should be what? 2. Reorganize the following steps of descriptive research in a correct sequence. Okay, collection and processing of data, interpretation of results, identification of a problem, drawing conclusions, drafting of the report, formulation of hypothesis. Okay, so students, if there is a descriptive research, then in this descriptive research basically we describe the characteristics of a certain event which is exactly occurred just after the event. Okay, so basically just after the event, the characteristics of that event we describe in the descriptive research, and based upon these characteristics we make the hypothesis and we test the hypothesis by using different statistical techniques, and at the end we get the results. So if whenever you do any kind of a descriptive research or any kind of a research basically, so every research has a common steps. Now let us see here different steps. So I have already told you, right? But in the descriptive research or any kind of a research, your first step should be what? Your first step should be identification of a problem. So this should be your first step. Then formulation of hypothesis will be your second step. Then collection and processing of data will be your third step. Then interpretation of results will be your fourth step. Then drawing of conclusion will be your fifth step. Then drafting of report will be your sixth step. Okay, so if you see all these options, FCA BDE, FCA EBD, CFA EBD, CFA BDE, So if you see all of these options, then you will understand that your correct answer should be what? 4. Because CFBDE is the right sequence of steps of descriptive research in a correct sequence. Okay. The major objective of a qualitative research study is to. Now what is the major objective of qualitative research? Understands a process or concept, then study group differences, predicts relationships, explain variation in measurements. So now students, qualitative research is the research under which basically we formulate the theory, and whatever data that we collect is non-numerical data, which is a qualitative data basically. And qualitative data is the data which is relevant to the human experiences, what they feels. Basically it is the data which is relevant to the quality of a human being or quality of an object. And that's why the main objective of a qualitative research is to understand the process or concept under study. So whenever we understand these processes or concepts, then we can understand the reason behind a particular phenomena. That's why the major objective of a qualitative research study is to understand a process or concept. Okay. Whenever you want to study group differences, then predicts relationships, explain variation in measurements, then in these situations you can adapt quantitative research because it is relevant to the quantity, okay, or the numerical objective quantity. And that's why in these situations, whenever you want to do compare the group differences, whenever you want to predict the cause and effect relationships or explain the variation in measurements of the variables, then for that you can do quantitative research. But for understanding a process or concept or any kind of a text or phenomena, for this you can adapt qualitative research study. Okay. A distribution of scores was negatively skewed. It can be stated that, okay, whenever there is a distribution of score and it was negatively skewed, then how you can state this negative skewness of this distribution of scores? Mean and median coincide. Mean is more than the median. Mean is less than the median. No such relationship exists. So students, skewness means what? There is asymmetry. Asymmetry means there is no symmetrical distribution of the scores. And negatively skewness means what? The tail of the curve is basically bending towards the left part. Okay, for example, this is your graph and this is your curve. Okay, so now this curve is bending towards the left part of this curve. Okay, so this is called as what? Negatively skewed. So basically this will be like this. Okay, your score will be like this. Are you getting? So students, this is called as what? Negatively skewed. Okay, and that's why in this situation your mean is less than the median because your tail is going to be bending towards the left. Left means this one, your side of left. Okay, this will be your positive skewness. Fine. So if you see here, if this curve is bending towards the left, then it means that the mean value is less than the median because mean is the central tendency which is affected by the outlier values. Values, I mean to say the extreme values of the data. Whenever the extreme values of the data is going to be changed, then mean value is obviously going to be changed. And if there is negative skewed distribution, then it means that your tail is bending towards the left part. That's why your mean value becomes very much lesser than median because median is not affected by the extreme values. So your median will be over here and your mean will be over here. That's why your mean is less than median in the negatively skewed distribution. Okay, that's why here your correct answer should be 3. And if there is a positive skewed distribution, then in that situation your graph will be like this. Okay, then it means that your mean will be more than the median because your median will be here, your mean will be here. So it means that your mean value will be more than median. So don't confuse in this. Your correct answer should be what? 3. Contemporary and historical records are often analyzed systematically through a procedure known as, whenever you want to analyze systematically the contemporary and historical records, then to analyze these things, which procedure you can do? Content analysis, quantitative index, sociologist, inquiry, coding. Now students, let us see one by one all of these options. What is content analysis? Now content analysis is a research method And we can use this research method to identify, analyze and interpret patterns and themes. Okay, patterns and themes in textual data. It involves systematic coding and categorization of text data to identify the patterns, themes and relationships within it. Okay, so these patterns and themes and relationships you can find in contemporary and historical records, because these are nothing but the data which is in text format. So to analyze systematically the data of these text format, you can do what? Content analysis. That's why here your correct answer should be what? 1, that is content analysis. And if you see all other options, then what is quantitative index? What is this? So students, this quantitative index is nothing but a numerical measure that we use to represent particular characteristic. Okay, and what is sociologist inquiry? Now this sociologist inquiry is a process of conducting research in field of sociology. Okay, and what is coding? Now coding is the content analysis process that involves assigning codes or labels to segments of text to facilitate analysis. So basically coding is the process which comes under content analysis. Whenever you need to code or some kind of a text, then for that coding procedure can be used in content analysis. Okay, that's why here your correct answer should be what? 1. What is a research design? Now what is research design? A way of conducting research that is not grounded in theory, the choice between using qualitative and quantitative methods, the style in which you present your research findings, example a graph, a framework for every stage of the collection and analysis of data. Okay, so students, what is research design? Research design is nothing but a outline, okay, that you make whenever you start to do your research process. So within a research design, you basically make an outline about your whole research process, exactly what you are going to do in your whole research process, what exactly the data collection methods and data analysis methods you are going to do in your research process. That's why research design is nothing but a framework for every stage of the collection and analysis of data. Okay, this is your correct answer. Okay, at every stage of collection and analysis of data, whatever the methods you are going to use, the framework of those methods or the outline of those methods are described in the research design. Okay, the standard error is a statistical measure of what? Now, what is the definition of standard error? Exactly, this is a statistical measure of what entity? The clustering of scores at each end of a survey scale, the extent to which a sample mean is likely to differ from the population mean, the normal distribution of scores around the sample mean, the degree to which a sample has been accurately stratified. So students, exactly what is this standard error? So the standard error is nothing but an extent, okay, to which sample mean is likely to differ from population mean. So basically whenever we need to calculate the standard error, then what we do? We subtract basically the sample mean from the population mean. Okay, population mean minus sample mean. Okay, so students, basically this is the estimate of standard deviation of sampling distribution of statistic, usually the estimate of parameter. Okay, are you getting? So just remember this, that standard error is nothing but a statistical measure of the extent to which a sample mean is likely to differ from the population mean. Okay, how much your sample mean is different from the population mean, so the measurement of that, the extent of that is nothing but what? Standard error. That's why here your correct answer should be what? 2. Okay, we would make type 2 error when? Now whenever we make the type 2 error, we accept false null hypothesis, we accepted true null hypothesis, we reject false null hypothesis, we reject true null hypothesis. So students, whenever we do type 2 error, in that situation there is null hypothesis, and this null hypothesis is basically what? False, and still we accept it. Okay, still we accept it. So students, here your correct answer should be what? 1. That is, we accept this false null hypothesis. Okay. Among the following techniques given below, which of the following is not a type of non-probability sampling? Now they have given you different options for sampling techniques, and they have asked you about the sampling technique which is not a type of non-probability sampling. Not a type of non-probability sampling means they asked you to select the option which is a type of probability sampling. So students, if you can't understand the meaning of question in a first time, then repetitively read this question twice, thrice, then you will understand what they have exactly asked you. Okay, so now let us see different options: convenience sampling, snowball sampling, quota sampling, stratified random sampling. So students, if you see all of these sampling techniques, then you will understand that convenience sampling, then snowball sampling, quota sampling, all of these are the types of non-probability sampling techniques. In this sampling technique, you basically select the samples by using non-random sampling techniques. Okay. So the remaining option, that is stratified random sampling, is a sampling technique which is not a type of non-probability sampling technique, and this is a type of probability sampling technique. In this sampling technique, we select the samples randomly from the target population. Okay, that's why here your correct answer should be what? 4. If the coefficient of correlation between x and y is 0.28, covariance between x and y is 3.36, and the variance of x is 9, then what is the variance of y? Now here they asked you to calculate the value of variance of y, and they have given you some values. They have given you the value of coefficient of correlation between x and y, which is 0.21, 0.28. Okay, and it is denoted by COV XY, and it is nothing but what? 0.28. They given you the value of covariance between x and y. Okay, which is nothing but what? 3.36. Okay, so students, here so COVXY is denoted for covariance between x and y, and it is nothing but 3.36, and coefficient of correlation is denoted by R, and the value of this is 0.28. Okay, and they have given you the value for variance of x, and this is nothing but what? V of x is equal to 9. Okay, now there is a formula for this. What is the formula? The formula is R is equal to covariance between x and y, which is denoted by COVXY, upon standard deviation of x into standard deviation of y. Now all of you know that standard deviation is nothing but what? Square root of v, or v is the square of standard deviation. So we will rewrite this equation. R is equal to COVXY upon square root of v of x into square root of v of y. All of you getting? Because this is the relationship between standard deviation and variance. Now put up the values. The value of R is 0.28, COVXY is 3.36 upon under root v of x is 9 into under root v of y. Now you need to calculate this value of v of y. Okay, basically, and if you solve all of this equation, then you will get the value of v of y is equal to 16. Okay, are you getting? That's why here your correct answer should be 1, that is 16. Okay, expected value is defined as, now what is the meaning of expected value? What is the definition of it? The relative frequency with which an event will occur, the profit on a fair bet, the outcome that will occur on average for a given experiment, the most likely outcome of a given experiment. So students, what is the definition of this expected value? So students, expected value is nothing but a measure of center of probability distribution. Okay, this is the measure of center of probability distribution. Okay, and it represents long term average value of random variable. Okay, it represents the long term average, okay, long term average value of random variable under study. Okay, so students, it is weighted R, okay, of all possible values that random variable can take, where weights are nothing but the probabilities of those values which are occurring. Okay, so that's why the expected value is nothing but the outcome that will occur on average for a given experiment. Okay, that's why here your correct answer should be what? 3. Okay, this is the outcome that will occur on average for a given experiment. So the average value of all the random variables, okay, that will occur as an outcome is nothing but what? The expected value. Okay, testing hypothesis. Now what is testing hypothesis? Whether it is a data analysis, data preparation, inferential statistics, descriptive statistics. So students, hypothesis is nothing but the expected outcome of the research. Okay, and whenever you are testing this hypothesis, it means that you are going to test this expected outcome. So let us see basically all of these options. Data analysis. Now data analysis is the step in the research process. In this, basically we analyze the data. So in the analysis of data part, you edit the data, basically you code the data. Okay, and whatever there are errors in the raw data, you remove those errors. So all of these things comes under data analysis. That's why testing hypothesis is not a data analysis. Data preparation is one of the step in data analysis. So in the data preparation, we make up the raw data into the organized data. Okay, because we need this organized data for our data analysis process. So in data preparation, we convert this raw data into a completed form of data. So this option also gets eliminated, because in this step also we don't test the hypothesis. Now what is inferential statistics? Now this statistics is somehow the, you can say, a technique, okay, that we use to test numericals, and inferential statistics is a branch of statistics. In the inferential statistics, whatever the inferences that we make about the data, okay, we basically test these inferences. Inferences are nothing but what? The predictions, or the, you can say, the educated claim of the data. Okay, so nothing but this is what? Hypothesis again. So by using this inferential statistics, or within a inferential statistics, we test this hypothesis, and for this we use different statistical techniques like t-test, chi-square test, f-test, ANOVA, etc. All of you getting? So that here your correct answer should be what? 3. And as we have seen earlier in previous sessions, that in the testing hypothesis part, we test the null hypothesis against the alternative hypothesis, and whenever we get the results in favor with the alternative hypothesis, we reject the null hypothesis. And in this testing part, we assume that the statement of null hypothesis is true. Okay, within the descriptive statistics, we basically describe the data. For example, by using the graphs, you can say, for example, measures of central tendency, measures of dispersion, all of these comes under descriptive statistics. But by using descriptive statistics, we don't test hypothesis, we just describe the data. Okay, the sum of the deviations of the items from arithmetic mean is, Okay, so students, whenever we take the deviations of the items from the arithmetic mean and we sum it, then what is the value of it? Maximum 0, minimum 1. So let us see one example. There is data from 1 to 10. Now the mean value of this data is 5. Okay, now the deviations of the items from this arithmetic mean means what? The deviation of the data points from this arithmetic mean. Okay, so whenever you make the deviations of this arithmetic mean, okay, towards the items, it means that you minus or you subtract this mean value from each data point. So you will do 1 minus 5, 2 minus 5, 3 minus 5, okay, till 10 minus 5. And whenever you will get these values, okay, and you sum these values, then you will get the value which is equal to 0, because less than 5 values will be negative and more than 5 values will be positive. You can do this. Okay, so this positive and negative values will cancel with each other and you will get the value which is equal to 0. That's why here your correct answer is 2. So students, always remember the sum of the deviations of the data points from arithmetic mean is always 0. Okay, compute the mode if mean is 4 and median is 6. Now they have given you the value of mean and value of median and they asked you to calculate the value of mode. Now students, whenever there is asymmetrical distribution, then in that case mode, mean and median are not equal to each other. So there is somehow the relationship between in these entities. So what is that? So that relationship is mode is equal to 3 into median minus 2 into mean. Okay, so now they wanted to calculate mode, so just put up the values of median and mean. 3 into 6 minus 2 into 4. Then if you calculate this, then you will get 10 value. So that's why if you see these options, your correct answer should be 10, that is 3. Okay, what is the correct format for reporting the ANOVA in a multiple regression? Whenever there is a multiple regression, then there is a format to report the ANOVA statistical technique. So what is the correct format for that? F under bracket 3 comma 89 is equal to 789.34 comma p less than 0.001 r square r raised to 2 is equal to 78% comma f is equal to 278 comma p greater than 0.05. Capital N is 23, p 0, f 963, r 12 minus 78.97, p greater than 0.001. So students, multiple regression means there are multiple dependent variables and there is only single one categorical independent variable and you need to measure the relationship between these. So this is called as what? Multiple regression, because there are multiple variables. Okay, so students, so in this regression technique, whenever you need to report the ANOVA or the basically the result that you get from the ANOVA, whenever you need to report it, then there is a format and that format is f under bracket 3 under bracket 3 comma 89 is equal to 789.34 comma p less than 0.001. Now let us see all of these entities. So now this f denoted as f statistic. So this is the test. Okay, are you getting? So this is a test which tests the overall significance of regression model. Okay, all of you know that in ANOVA we do the f test. Okay, we do the f test in ANOVA. Okay, if you don't know, then understand this. So the parentheses in which the numbers are given, these are nothing but the degrees of freedom. So now this first number, that is 3, is nothing but a degree of freedom for regression, and this second number is the degree of freedom for residual. 789.34 is nothing but a calculated f statistic value. Okay, p is nothing but the p value. So now this p value is nothing but probability of observing test statistic as extreme as one calculated assumed null hypothesis true, okay, which is less than 0.001. So I hope now all of you understood this format. So this is the format that we use to report the ANOVA in a multiple regression. Okay, testing hypothesis is a, now we have seen this question in this session only, but it was the PYQ that asked in 2019, but again they have asked in 2018 as well. Now you can understand that these PYQs are going to be repetitively asked. So now there are different options: data analysis, descriptive statistics, data preparation, inferential statistics. So now students, this question is homework to all of you, because I have told you the answer for this one in this session only. So this is the homework to all the students, and you need to give the answer for this question in the comment box to me. Okay, the research is always exploring new knowledge, filling the gap between the knowledge, then verifying the old knowledge. So students, they have given you different characteristics of research, and you need to select the correct option for this. Exactly, research is what? Whether it explores new knowledge, whether it fills the gap between the knowledge, whether it verifies the old knowledge. So basically students, research is nothing but a systematic search for the solution of the specific problem. So basically the issue that we see or that we experience, so for that issue we want an answer. So to answer that issue we need a research, and research is something which gives us the solution of our problems, and basically it explores the new knowledge. So by doing the research we can improve our knowledge, we can find out a new knowledge. For example, we can make up a new theory, we can make up a new principle or laws. As well, research fills the gap between the knowledge. It is possible, basically whatever we have actually knowledge, so we can improve our knowledge. Okay, and this is nothing but what? We can fill the gap between our knowledge. As well, whatever old knowledge is there, we can verify it by using historical research. We can study on the past events. Okay, this is why, or this is how we verify the old knowledge. Okay, that's why your correct answer for this question should be 3, 1, 2 and 3, because research is always which explores new knowledge, it always which fills the gap between the knowledge, it is always which verifies the old knowledge. Okay, given the following data, calculate the regression coefficient of x on y. Pearson's correlation coefficient is plus 0.8. Regression coefficient of y on x is 0.8. Choose the correct answer from the following. Now in this question they asked you to calculate the regression coefficient of x on y. Okay, so they actually asked you to calculate basically bxy. So regression coefficient of x on y is denoted by bxy, and they have given you the terms like Pearson's correlation coefficient, which is denoted by r, which is plus 0.8, and they have given you the value of regression coefficient of y on x, which is byx, and the value is 0.8. So students, now let us see the formula for bxy. What is it? Okay, so if you want to calculate the bxy, which is equal to r into sigma x upon sigma y, where r is Pearson's correlation coefficient, sigma x is standard deviation of variable x, sigma y is standard deviation of variable y, and bxy is nothing but what? Regression coefficient of x on y. They have also given you regression coefficient of y on x. So to calculate this, there is formula r into sigma y upon sigma x. Okay, as we have seen, r is correlation coefficient, sigma y is standard deviation of variable y, and sigma x is standard deviation of variable x. Okay, now we need to put up the value of byx in this equation, because they have given you the value of that only, right? So for that we need to rearrange this equation. So we need to do what? Byx upon r is equal to sigma y upon sigma x. Just reverse this or reciprocal this, then you will get what? R upon byx is equal to sigma x upon sigma y. Now put up this instead of sigma x upon sigma y, this equation. So you will get bxy is equal to r into what? R upon byx. Now we have all these values. The value of r is 0.8 into 0.8 upon byx what? Again 0.8. So now this 0.8 gets cancelled. So your correct answer should be what? 0.8. So here your correct answer should be answer 2, that is 0.8. Okay, so don't confuse between the formulas of bxy and byx. So remember it. Okay, if bxy is 0.25, byx is 0.64, correlation coefficient is. Now they have given you the values of bxy and byx, and they want to calculate from you the correlation coefficient. Now we have seen in the previous question that bxy is what? Regression, okay, of x on y, and byx is what? Regression of y on x. So the formula for bxy is what? R into standard deviation of x upon standard deviation of y, and byx is what? R into standard deviation of y upon standard deviation of x. Now put up these values. Okay, so bxy is what? 0.25 and byx is what? 0.64, and they want to calculate from you the value of r, which is correlation coefficient. Okay, so as we have did in question 2, we need to first of all rearrange one of the equation. So let us rearrange this equation byx. So byx upon r is equal to sigma y upon sigma x. So now just reciprocal this. Okay, r upon byx is equal to sigma x upon sigma y. Okay, so just put up this sigma x upon sigma y here. So you will get what? 0.25 is equal to r into r upon byx, right? So now put up the values of these. Okay, so r square upon what? byx is what? 0.64. So r square is equal to 0.25 into 0.64. So it would be 0.16. So now you need to square root r square. So it would be what? 0.4. So your correct answer should be what? Option 4, that is 0.4. Okay, so this is also very easy question, but just you need to know the formulas for this. Okay, calculate coefficient of variation when mean is 58.375 and standard deviation is 10.36. Now they asked you to calculate the coefficient of variation. Okay, and they have given you the values of mean and the value of standard deviation. So now students, this coefficient of variation, okay, this is basically denoted by CV. Okay, and now this CV is nothing but a measure of relative variability. Okay, and whenever we want to calculate this CV, we need to ratio out the standard deviation, okay, to mean, and it is basically expressed in percentage. That's why the formula for CV is equal to standard deviation upon mean into 100% into 100%. So now put up the values of this. Standard deviation is 10.36 upon mean is 58.375 into 100%. So if you calculate all of these, then you will get the value 17.75%. And if you see all of these options, then your correct answer should be what? 4, that is 17.75%. So now in this case, you need to remember this formula of CV, that is coefficient of variation. Name the extension used in SPSS to save a data file. Now they have asked you what is the name of the extension that we use in SPSS to save a data file. Okay, so SPSS is a statistical package for social sciences. Okay, and this is one of the software that we use to do different research methodology methods like statistical techniques whenever we need to store the data. So all of these things we can do this in this software. Okay, so students, whenever we need to save a data file in a SPSS software, then we need a somehow extension. What is that extension? Whether it is .save, .sav, .docx, .sav.in. So students, basically this application allows the users to save their data in proprietary binary format, which is the native format for SPSS application, and the extension that we use for this is basically what? .sav. All of you know about, right, about extension. For example, whenever we save the data in a Microsoft Office, okay, then for saving that data, the extension that we use is docx, okay, or basically doc. But here in the SPSS application, whenever we need to save the data in the SPSS file format, then in this situation we use the extension .sav. Okay, identify from the following the test statistic for which the value of numerator should always be greater than that of denominator. So now they have given you different test statistics, and which is the test statistic? Okay, the value of numerator should always be greater than that of denominator in their equation. So whether it is z value, f value, chi-square, t value. So now let us see one by one all of these test statistics. So now z value is the value that we get from the z test. Okay, so whenever you need to calculate this z value, you subtract, okay, you subtract mean from data point and divide this result by standard deviation. So basically here you subtract mean from data point, so it means that you may get negative value. Okay, that's why here numerator not always be greater than the denominator. Are you getting? That's why here this option is going to get now eliminated. Now what is f value? Now f value is the ratio of two variances, and variances are always non-negative. They are not negative. Okay, that's why whenever you do the ratio of these two variances, then you will always get a positive value, and this f value basically gives you the variability between groups. Okay, and that's why here always you get the more variability between the groups than within groups, and that's why here the numerator will be always greater than that of denominator, and that's why you will get the f value always greater, and f value should be always greater because there should be more variability between the groups than within the groups. That's why here your correct answer should be what? F value. Okay, now let us see what is chi-square. Now this is chi-square is nothing but a chi-square test, and this is a non-parametric test, and from this test we can measure the difference between observed values and the expected values. So whenever you need to calculate this chi-square value, you need to sum squared differences. Okay, you need to sum squared differences between observed and expected frequencies divided by expected frequencies. Okay, divided by what? Expected frequencies. Now here also you are going to sum out the squared differences between observed and expected differences. expected frequencies basically. Okay, so here though you are doing the sum, but not always you will get the denominator less than numerator, because whenever you get this value more, okay, then it means that there is the difference between observed and expected frequencies. But whenever you get the less values, then it means that there is no any that much amount of difference between expected and observed frequencies, but not always you get these values. Are you getting? That's why here there is not any kind of a rule that is, you know, numerator should always be greater than that denominator, because in some cases you will get numerator lesser than denominator. That's why this option gets eliminated. Now in t value, okay, now this t value you will get from students t distribution test, and here you need to subtract means of two groups. Okay, you need to subtract means of two groups. Okay, and basically you divide this, okay, by standard error of difference between means. Are you getting? So here also the similar case like we have seen in chi-square. Whenever you get this value more, then there is difference between the groups. When this value will get lesser, there won't be any difference between the groups. Okay, that's why here your correct answer should be 2, that is f value. Okay, which of the following is not a type of data structure? Now they have given you different options, and from these options, which is an option which is not a type of data structure? Whether it is network, whether it is emotional, whether it is relational, whether it is hierarchical. So students, there are 3 types of data structures, and the first one is network. So by this network type of data structure, you can represent the relationship between the entities. Okay, relationship between the entities. Second is relational. So within the relational type of data structure, you can represent the relationship between the entities by using table in the format of rows and columns. Okay, in the hierarchical type of data structure, you can represent the data in the format of trees. Okay, like tree diagram, flow chart, like that. So all of these are the type of data structure, but emotional is not any kind of a data structure. So this option is your correct answer. Okay, Carl Pearson correlation has which limitations? Now again this question they have asked you in 2018. We have seen this question in every lecture, okay, because they have repetitively asked this question. So students, whether it is -1, whether it is +1, whether it is plus or -1, whether it is none of the above, obviously the Carl Pearson correlation has limitations between -1 to +1. Okay, that's why here your correct answer should be what? Plus or -1. Okay, because the limitations are what? -1 and +1. So it should be plus or -1. Okay. One of the findings of Hawthorne experiments is that now they have given you different options, and from this option, which is the finding of Hawthorne experiment, incentives motivate people better. Strict adherence to rules improves performance. People need to belong to a social group. People perform better even in poor lighting. So students, Hawthorne experiments are the experiments under which researcher put up the participants in a somehow social settings, and because of those social settings, people behave something different, and researcher get something different but positive results. So these Hawthorne experiments are the experiments which conducted at Hawthorne Works of Western Electric Company in Chicago between 1924 to 1927. Okay, where it was led by George Elton Mayo, and the aim of the study was human behavior in an organizational setting. So they studied the human behavior, okay, in the organizational setting. Okay, so this was basically the aim of that study. So what they found? They found that workers' moral, then their productivity and sense of belonging were influenced by social factors, okay, like recognition, security and sense of belonging, rather than just physical working condition. So the finding of that experiment was what? So because of the social groups, okay, people have changed their behavior, okay, and because of their changed behavior, they basically worked more sensible, they worked more positively. That's why the finding of Hawthorne experiment is what? People need to belong to a social group. Okay, so this is your correct answer. People need to be belong to a social community when the skewness is 0. Now when the skewness is 0, okay, mean is equal to median but not mode, mean is equal to mode but not median, mean is equal to median and mode, mean, median and mode will have different values. So students, skewness means what? Asymmetry, right? Asymmetry means there is no symmetrical distribution, and whenever skewness is 0, then it means that asymmetry is 0. Asymmetry is 0 means that there is symmetrical. Symmetrical means what? There is symmetrical distribution of the data. It means that you will get a bell curve. Here when you make two halves, then your right and left halves will be equal to each other, and whenever there is symmetry, then it means that all of your data values are positioned in a central position data, and that central position data is nothing but mean, median and mode. So here in this situation, the values of mean, median and mode all are equal to each other. That's why here your correct answer should be what? 3, that is mean is equal to median and mode. Okay, the systematic, objective and exhaustive search for and study of the facts relevant to any marketing problem can be stated as: whenever we are going to do a search, and that search is systematic, objective and exhaustive, and this search is for the facts which are relevant to any marketing problem, and as well we are going to do the study of these facts, then overall this information, or overall this basically the concept is what? Okay, whether it is marketing research, whether it is marketing management, whether it is marketing analysis, market segmentation. So students, overall this kind of study is called as what? Marketing research, because marketing research is a systematic, objective and exhaustive way in which we can search and study the facts which are relevant to any marketing problem. Okay, so marketing research is a process of gathering, it is a process of gathering, then analyzing, then interpreting the information about market, then product, okay, market, basically market, product or service to be offered for sale in that market, and about past, present and potential customers for product or service. So by doing this research, a marketer can understand the consuming level of any kind of a product, and according to that they can improve their products. Okay, so this is somehow called as what? Marketing research. Under the marketing management, we manage the different things in the marketing industry. In marketing analysis, we can analyze different trends about the products in the market, then sales of those trends and etc. Market segmentation means we are doing the classification of different goods and products under the market. Okay, but here your correct answer should be what? 1, that is marketing research. Features of a good sample does not include. Now from these options, which is the option which is not a feature of good sample? So homogeneity, representative of the universe, reliability and conformity with the subject of investigation, non-random selection of items. So students, good sample is the sample that we take from the target population. That's why a sample should have homogeneity. Homogeneity means a sample should have similar characteristics with the target population, and the participants in the sample should have common characteristics. They should be similar with each other, and that's why those participants come under the same sample. Okay, so this is what homogeneity. Representative of the universe means basically we select the sample from the universe, so the characteristics of the universe should be there in the sample, and that's why it is called as what? Representative of the universe. It should be reliable and it should be conform with the subject of the investigation. Okay, because if it is reliable and confirm with the subject of the investigation, then only we can do the better research and we can do the better investigation. That's why all of these three options are the features of a good sample. But the fourth option is not a feature of good sample, which is non-random selection of items. Because whenever we do the non-random selection of items, then there is no equal chance of the participants to get selected in the study. As well, there will be lot of bias, and there will be bias so that the sample won't be representative of the universe or target population. That's why this is not a good feature of a good sample. Okay, the degree of correlation coefficient lies between. Now the degree of correlation coefficient lies between which values? -1 to +1, 0 to 1, -1 to 0, none of these. So students, this question we have also seen in yesterday's session. Again they have asked you in 2020 question paper. So you can understand now most of the MCQs are going to be asked repetitively. Okay, so as we have seen earlier, the degree of correlation coefficient lies between -1 to +1. When there is -1 value, then there is perfect negative correlation. When there is 0 value, there is no any kind of a correlation. When there is +1 value, there will be perfect positive correlation. Okay, one of the assumptions of Pearson's coefficient of correlation includes. Now they have given you different options, and from this option there is one option which is the assumption of Pearson's coefficient of correlation. So what is that? Positive and negative relationship, non-stationary distribution, then multiplicity of causes, then normality of variables. So students, there are certain assumptions of Pearson's coefficient of correlation. So basically this Pearson's coefficient of correlation is very helpful in understanding the relationship between the two variables. Basically relationship between the continuous variables actually. Okay, and as we have seen earlier, the values of it comes between -1 to +1. Okay, so it gives you the idea about the direction and strength of the relationship between continuous variables. So basically the linear relationship. Okay, and those assumptions are, first one is level of measurement. First one is what? Level of measurement. Okay, so it means that two variables should be measured at interval or ratios level. Okay, second assumption is related pairs. Okay, related pairs. Related pairs means what? Each observation in data set should have pair of values. Okay, and third assumption is absence of outliers. Absence of outliers means the extreme values of the variable should be absent. There won't be the extreme values of the variables. Fourth assumption is normality of outliers. Okay, normality of outliers or normality of the variables basically. Okay, so it means that your values should be normally distributed, or the data values should be normally distributed. Your fifth assumption is linearity. Linearity means there should be the linear relationship between the variables. And your sixth assumption is what? Homoscedasticity. Okay, homoscedasticity. It means what? Variance around the line should be similar. Okay, so if you see all of these options, then you will understand that the assumption of Pearson's coefficient of correlation is what? Normality of variables. So the values under the data set should be normally distributed. So this is one of the assumption of it. Positive and negative relationship is not a assumption. Non-stationary distribution is also not a assumption, because in a non-stationary distribution, the variables are going to be changed according to the time. For example, the mean values, the mode values, or the median values of the whole data set is going to be changed according to the time. So this is not an assumption of this coefficient of correlation. Multiplicity of causes also not an assumption, because in this there are different causes for a one outcome. Okay, but this is not an assumption of Pearson's coefficient of correlation. That's why here your correct answer should be 4, that is normality of variables. Read the following situation and state which of the following data collection methodology shall be better suited. So now they have given you one situation, and for this situation we need to give the answer which data collection methodology will be better suitable for this situation. Federation of Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, that is FICCI, wants to collect sector specific information for the year 2020 in order to promote trade in the country. Now FICCI wants to collect sector specific information for the year 2020 so that they can promote trade in the country. So for collecting such kind of data, what data collection methodology will be more suitable? Mailed questionnaire method, schedules sent through enumerators, indirect oral investigation, direct personal investigation. So for such data collection situation we can use schedules sent through enumerators, because in this data collection methodology basically we can send trained enumerators to collect data from respondents using structured questionnaire. Okay, and they can help clarify any question that respondents may have, and can also ensure that data collected is accurate and reliable. And it is useful when dealing with complex and technical information such as sector specific information, because this is very complex and technical information. So for collecting such kind of information we can send enumerators, and these enumerators can take responses from the respondents. Okay, so this is really very helpful data collection methodology for this situation. In the mailed questionnaire method, basically researcher sends the different types of questions through the mail, and this won't be that much helpful, because through this method researcher can't give the advice or can't give the solution to the specific problems relevant to a collection of sector specific information to the respondents. Indirect oral investigation is the method in which there will be oral investigation but through the indirect technologies. It won't be that much helpful. As well, direct personal investigation is not helpful because it takes lot of time, and we don't have that much amount of time because we want to collect lot of amount of data. Okay. If the mean of population is 25, then the mean of sampling distribution is. Now they have given you the mean of population which is 25, and they asked you to calculate the mean of sampling distribution. So whether it is 25, whether it is 5, whether it is 30, whether it is 35. Now students, according to the central limit theorem, okay, according to the central limit theorem, the mean of population is equal to the mean of sampling distribution. As it is 25, it means that mean of sampling distribution should be what? 25. That's why here your correct answer should be what? 25. Now let us see what is the statement of central limit theorem. So it states that as sample size increases, the distribution of sample means approaches normal distribution with mean equal to population mean and standard deviation equal to population standard deviation divided by square root of sample size. So as your sample size increases, okay, the mean of population is equal to the mean of sampling distribution, and the standard deviation Okay, this standard deviation is equal to what? Population standard deviation. Population standard deviation divided by square root of sample size. Okay, square root of sample size. So this is central limit theorem, and according to this, mean of population is equal to mean of sampling distribution. Which of the following sampling method is not based on probability? Now they have given you different sampling techniques, and from these sampling techniques, which is the sampling technique which is not based on probability? So it means that which is not based on random sampling technique. Okay. So now let us see options. Simple random sampling, stratified sampling, quota sampling, cluster sampling. So from these options, students, quota sampling is a sampling method which is not based on probability, because in this sampling technique you have the target population, and from the target population you make different subgroups, but from each subgroup you non-randomly select the samples according to the characteristics you want in the your study. Okay, basically here you select the samples from each subgroup in this population non-randomly. Okay, that's why this is not based upon the random sampling technique. Okay, but all other options like simple random sampling, stratified sampling, cluster sampling, all of these are the sampling methods which is based on probability. That's why here your correct answer should be 3. A null hypothesis. Now what is null hypothesis? When there is no difference between the variables, when there is a difference between the variables, subjective in nature, the same as research hypothesis. Now students, null hypothesis is the hypothesis under which we state that there is no difference between the variables. Okay, that's why here your correct answer should be what? 1, that is when there is no difference between the variables. Okay, and basically in the research we test the null hypothesis by using different statistical methodologies. Okay, which research includes all types of researches into human motives when it refers to qualitative research designed to uncover the consumer's subconsciousness or hidden motivations. Now from these research types, which is the research which includes all types of researches which is relevant to human motives, and in this research type we can do the qualitative research which is designed to understand the consumer's subconsciousness or hidden motivations. So whether it is price research, marketing research, managerial research, motivational research. So students, such kind of research type is called as what? Motivational research, because here you are going to see the human motives, you are going to understand the consumer's subconsciousness or hidden motivations, right? And in the motivational research you are basically studying the human motivation itself. Okay, so this is the research type, and this is the type of marketing research. Okay, this is the type of marketing research, and it focuses on understanding underlying reasons why consumers behave in certain ways. Okay, and it uses different techniques such as in-depth interviews, then focus groups, projective test to explore subconscious motivation that drive consumer behavior. So by understanding such consumer behaviors, marketer can understand what is happening in the consumer's mind, and according to that they improve their products. Okay, price research, in that we can understand the different price options of the products in the market. Marketing research, as we have seen in the first question of this session, right? Managerial research, we are going to manage different things. So here your correct answer should be what? 4. In the normal distribution, the data values are clustered around the. Now there is a normal distribution of the data, as we know that, and in the normal distribution of the data values are clustered around which term? Whether it is mode of the data or standard deviation or mean or median. As we know that normal distribution of the data is nothing but a symmetrical distribution, and in this distribution the mean, then median and mode of the data set is equal, and that's why you will get a bell curve like this. Okay, this is called as bell curve, and this is nothing but a normal distribution of data. And in this, data values are clustered around the mean value of the data set, and that's why here your correct answer should be 3, because mean is nothing but the average of the whole data set, right? And that's why within the normal distribution the data values are clustered around this mean value of the whole data set. Okay, and whenever there is a normal distribution, then half of the values come under the mean and half of the values come above the mean. Okay, that's why here your correct answer should be 3. In statistical analysis, correlation coefficient is the range between. Now in the statistical analysis, what is the range of correlation coefficient? Whether it is 0 to +1, -1 to 0, +1 to +2, -1 to +1. Now students, this is very easiest question and it has asked you in 2018 year. So students, correlation coefficient is nothing but a statistical technique through which you can measure the strength and direction of linear relationship between two variables. Okay, so the ranges of this correlation coefficient range between -1 to +1. Whenever there is -1 range, then it means that there is perfect negative correlation between the two variables. When there is +1 range, then it means that there is perfect positive correlation between the two variables, and when there is 0 range, then it means that there is no any correlation between the two variables. Perfect negative means two variables has negative correlation. If you increase the value of one variable, then another variable will decrease its values. In positive correlation, both the variables have positive correlation. It means that once you increase the value of one variable, then another variable also increases its value. Okay, so that's why students, this actually ranges between -1 to +1. That's why here your correct answer should be 4. What is the range of Pearson's correlation coefficient? Now students, they have asked you about the range of Pearson's correlation coefficient, whether it is -1 to +1, -1 to 0, 0 to 1, none of these. Now this question asked you in 2019, and Pearson's correlation coefficient is nothing but the correlation coefficient itself that we have seen earliest in the question 1. Okay, so students, now you can understand that most of the questions are repetitively going to be asked in each year. Okay, Pearson's correlation coefficient, also called as Pearson product movement correlation coefficient or Pearson correlation coefficient. Okay, Pearson correlation coefficient. So students, this ranges between what? -1 to +1, as we have seen in question 1. Okay, so the similar question they have asked you in 2019, but instead of correlation coefficient, they have asked you Pearson's correlation coefficient, but both of the concepts are same. Okay, following is not the example of test. Now they have given you different options. From these options, which is the option which is not the example of test? Test means statistical test. Okay, so now let us see the options: chi-test, t-test, pi-test, f-test. So students, all of you now familiar with some statistical tests, and there are two types of statistical tests. One is parametric test and another one is non-parametric test. So within the parametric test, there are different kinds of assumptions, and whenever the data fulfill those assumptions, then we can do the parametric test. But within the non-parametric test, there is no any kind of assumption about the data. Okay, so from these options, chi-test means chi-square test. Okay, and this is the non-parametric test, and by using chi-square test, we can measure the difference between observed data and the expected data. Okay. T-test is the parametric test. By using the t-test, we can measure the mean differences between two groups. Okay. F-test is again a parametric test, but from these options, pi test is not any kind of a statistical test that we can use in the research methodology. That's why here your correct answer should be what? 3, that is pi test. The research participants are described in detail in which section of the research plan? Now, in which section of the research plan research participants are described in detail? Means the information about research participants are described in detail. Whether it is discussion section, method section, data analysis section or introduction section. So students, within the research plan there are lots of sections like introduction, then research method section in which we provide the information about data collection methods and data analysis methods. Then there is result section, right? So these are the different sections that are there in the research plan, but there is only one section in which we provide all the information about research participants, like how we have collected the data from research participants, how we have encouraged the different participants to get in the research study, then as well different characteristics of the research participants are described in detail in that research section. So that research section is nothing but method section, because in the method section we provide all the details about data collection methods and data analysis methods as well. So within the data collection methods we provide information about different sampling techniques through which we have acquired different participants in the research study. As well we provide information about the data itself basically. Okay, that's why here your correct answer should be what? 2. According to your text, which of the following is not a source of research ideas? Now from these options, which is the option which is not a source of research ideas? All of the above are sources of research ideas: practical issues, past research, theory. So students, source of research ideas means a source from which we get the idea about the research question. Okay, for that we need to do the research so that we will get answers to those research questions. Okay, so if you see all of these options, then you will understand that all of these are the sources of research ideas. If you see some practical issues, then from the practical issues you will understand that this is the problem in the practical, and from that problem you can identify the research ideas or different research questions. Okay, these research questions need to be solved. Then from the past research as well you will get some research ideas. From the theory itself you will get some research ideas, you will get some hypothesis. Okay, that's why here your correct answer should be 1, that is all of the above are the sources of research ideas. Okay, which of the following is not a type of research question? So now from these options, which is the option which is not a type of research question? Developing a good research practice, then a hypothesis, then evaluating a phenomenon, then predicting an outcome. So students, type of research question means a research question itself. Okay, so this could be a research question, and for this research question we have some kind of a idea in our mind and we need to solve this research question through different research methods. Okay, so if you see all of these options, then you will understand that hypothesis is not a research question. Okay, because hypothesis is a proposed explanation for any kind of a phenomenon that can be tested through further investigation. So this is not a research question. After identifying and formulating a research question, then we make up a hypothesis, all of you getting. That's why here your correct answer should be what? 2. And if you see other options, that is developing good practice, then evaluating a phenomenon, predicting an outcome. All of these are the types of research questions. Okay. Probable error can be used only when. So in which situation we can use the probable error? Data is drawn from normal population. Conditions of random sampling are prevailing during selection of samples. Neither for data nor for random sampling, then both for data and for random sampling. So students, this probable error is a statistical measure, and we use this to estimate precision of sample statistic. Okay, basically we use it to measure the precision of sample statistic. Okay, so basically this is calculated as the product of standard error of statistic and constant factor, and this depends on level of confidence desired. Okay, so this probable error is used when data must appropriate to bell-shaped curve. Bell-shaped curve means that the data should be normally distributed. Okay, it should have a normal distribution, it should have a symmetrical curve. Okay, and as well, probable error is computed when statistical measure is taken from sample. Whenever this statistical measure is taken from the sample, then in that condition we can use the probable error, and as well the data should have bell-shaped curve. So in these two conditions we can use probable error, and as I have told you earlier, probable error is used whenever we need to measure the precision of sample statistic. Precision of sample statistic means the values in the sample statistics are accurate or not. Okay, whether those values are are the outcomes of the research results or not. So to measure that we need what? Probable error, and that's why here your correct answer should be what? 4, because both for data and for random sampling we can use probable error. Okay, so here your correct answer should be what? 4, because in first option there is only normal population condition, in second option there is only random sampling condition, in third option both of these conditions are not there, but in both of these conditions we can use probable error. That's why here your correct answer should be what? 4. Concurrent deviation method is associated with. Now from these options, which is the option to which concurrent deviation method is associated? Quantitative measurement, qualitative measurement, variables of qualitative characters, and correlation coefficient of variables of two qualitative characters. Okay, so students, now let us see first of all what is this concurrent deviation method. Okay, so this concurrent deviation method is the method that we use to study direction of change in two paired variables. Okay, so whenever you need to study the direction of change of two paired variables, then we can use concurrent deviation method. So this concurrent deviation method is not useful whenever we need to study the magnitude of change, but whenever you need to study the direction of change, then you can use it. Okay, and also this is denoted as RC. Okay, and it is calculated based on the number of concurrent deviation between two series. All of you getting? So the number of concurrent deviation between two series is the criteria on which you can calculate the concurrent deviation. Okay, that is RC. So students, as you have seen that you can study the direction of change in two variables, right? And that's why you can't use this method in quantitative measurements, because within the quantitative measurements you need to study the magnitude, right? That's why first option gets eliminated. Okay, so the remaining options are what? 3 options, that is qualitative measurement, variables of qualitative characters, then correlation coefficient of variables of two qualitative characters. So now here you are going to study the direction of change in two paired variables. Paired variables means there is some kind of a correlation between the variables, right? That's why here your correct answer should be what? 4. That is correlation coefficient of variables of two qualitative characters. Qualitative characters because you are studying the direction of change, and correlation coefficient of variables because here there are two paired variables. Okay? Which of the following procedures tends to minimize the influence of random errors on measured results? Now from these three procedures, which is the procedure that we can use to minimize the influence or effect of random errors on measured results? So whether it is signal averaging, use of internal standards, averaging the results from multiple samples. So they have given you different options: 1 only, 2 only, 1 and 3 only, 3 only. Okay. So students, random errors occurred because whenever you do some errors in the selection of samples randomly from the target population. So to minimize the effect of these random errors on measured results, we can use two methods or two procedures, and those are signal averaging and averaging the results from multiple samples. Because both of these methods, if you see, are exactly similar to each other. Okay, but the procedure that we do is basically different. So within the signal averaging, what we do? So basically in this method, we take multiple measurements and calculate their average to reduce impact of random errors. So what we do? We take the multiple measurements of the variables, and what we do? We calculate their average. We calculate their average so that we can minimize the effect of random errors on the measured results of the variables. And within the averaging the results from multiple samples, we do similarly this thing. Okay, in this method basically, okay, the results that we get, okay, so basically because of these results, we can basically minimize the influence of random errors on measured results, and we do this by increasing the sample size. Okay, by increasing the sample size. So if you see averaging the results from multiple samples, so exactly the similar procedure we are doing in signal averaging, but within the signal averaging we do different steps, but in this method we do different steps. And here the main criteria is that we increase the sample size. Because of increasing this sample size, we can minimize the effect of random errors on measured results. Okay, and within the use of internal standards, what we do? So in this basically it control basically different sources of variability in measurement process. So there are lots of measurement procedures. So within those measurement procedures there are somehow sources of variability. So we can control these sources of variability in use of internal standards method. Okay, that's why here your correct answer should be what? 3. That is 1 and 3 only. Objectives of research and development costs include. Now students, what is the objective of research and development costs? Maintaining present competitive position, improving enterprises competitive position, exploring new market and products, all of these. So students, research and development cost means what? Research and development is nothing but a long procedure through which we can basically do most of the things, right? We can improve enterprises, everything. We can improve its product system, we can launch new products, we can improve the cost of the product, right? That's why by doing all of these we can maintain the competitive position of company or enterprise. We can improve the enterprise's competitive position. We can also explore new market or new products because of the research and development cost, right? So all of these are the objectives of research and development costs, and that's why here your correct answer should be what? 4. Because of the research and development we can do everything, we can improve everything. Okay, that's why all of these are the objectives of R&D costs. Okay, that's why here your correct answer should be what? 4. If we have very large sample size, okay, we can afford to discard which of the following assumptions of ANOVA whenever there is a large sample size. Okay, so in that situation, from these options, which are the options of, relevant to ANOVA that we assume whenever we take the ANOVA as a statistical test, then which of these options can we afford to discard if the larger size of the sample size? Okay, the samples are drawn from normally distributed populations. Each population has the same variance. Samples are independent, none of these. So students, as we know that ANOVA is what? A parametric test. Parametric test means there are lot of assumptions, and whenever we fulfill all of these assumptions, then only we can do the ANOVA. ANOVA is nothing but what? Analysis of variance, right? So by using this statistical test, we can compare the means of more than 2 groups, right? Okay, so students, the most important assumption of ANOVA is that the data which is present, okay, all the data sets should be normally distributed. This is one of the most important assumption of ANOVA. Okay, and that's why whenever there is a larger sample size, then in that situation this assumption of normal related, the samples are symmetrical basically, or at least their shape is similar in shape basically. Okay, but in this situation, the normally distribution of the data set within the population is getting violated, and that's why whenever there is a larger sample size, then in that situation we can afford, okay, to discard this assumption of samples are drawn from normally distributed populations in ANOVA. Okay, that's why here your correct answer should be what? 1. All of you getting? And the two other options, like each population has the same variance, then samples are independent, okay, these assumptions we can mate. Okay, whenever there is a larger sample size and we want to do ANOVA, we can mate these assumptions, but we can't mate this assumption. Basically this assumptions is getting what? Violated, because there is very large amount of sample size, and that's why we can't assume that, okay, there is a normally distribution of the population. Are you getting? That's why here your correct answer should be what? 1. Okay, we can afford to discard this assumption. It is better to discard this assumption, right? Because it is going to be violated. All of you getting? That's why this is your correct answer. With a lower significance level, the probability not rejecting a false null hypothesis is, okay, so students, if there is a lower significance level is denoted by alpha. So in that situation, the probability of not rejecting a false null hypothesis is what? Whether it will decrease or increase or remains unaffected, or none of these. Not rejecting means what? You are accepting, right? So the probability of accepting false null hypothesis. Okay, so students, whenever there is lower significance level, then in that situation the probability of not rejecting a false null hypothesis, which is called as what? Type 2 error. Okay, type 2 error in the hypothesis testing. So basically this will increases. Okay, because lower significance level means that what? A criteria for rejecting null hypothesis, okay, is more stringent. Stringent means it will be more difficult. Okay, and making it less likely to reject false null hypothesis. So students, lower significance level means what? There is a criteria for rejecting null hypothesis will be more difficult for us. Okay, and that's why it makes us less likely to reject this false null hypothesis. So that's why we are going to mostly accepting this false null hypothesis, and this is nothing but what? Type 2 error. So whenever there is a lower significance level, then obviously this probability of making type 2 error will obviously what? Increases, because within the lower significance level, okay, it will be more difficult for us to reject this null hypothesis. Okay, are you getting? And that's why the probability of accepting this false null hypothesis automatically increases, as we have seen in earlier videos about type 2 error and type 1 error. Okay, because within the hypothesis these two errors occur. Type 2 error means what? Whenever the null hypothesis is false but still we accept it, then type 2 errors occur. And whenever there is a null hypothesis and this is true but still we reject it, then in that situation what? Type 1 error occurs. Okay, all of you getting, students? But here what they asked you, there is a lower significance level, and whenever there is a lower significance level, then in that situation it will be very difficult for all of us, okay, to reject this false null hypothesis. And that's why we are going to what? Accept this false null hypothesis. And whenever we accept this false null hypothesis, then type 2 error occurs, and the probability of occurring this error automatically increases. So here your answer should be what? 2, that is what? Increases. Okay, if a study is reliable, this means that whenever the study is reliable, then what is the meaning of that? The measures devised for concepts are stable and provide more or less same data or results on different occasions. The methods are stated clearly enough for the research to be replicated. The findings can be generalized to other social settings. It was conducted by a reputable researcher who can be trusted. So students, reliable means what? Trustworthy. So whenever a particular study is trustworthy, it means that the results are stable always in different occasions. Whenever we do that study in different occasions, okay, then after doing the study in different occasions we get the similar results. So it means that that study is reliable. It means what? It means that the measures that we devised for means what? For example, any kind of instrument. So that instrument is stable because it is giving you the stable results in every occasion whenever you do the study. So the meaning of this is this: the measures devised for concepts are stable and it provide more occasions. So this means what? Study is reliable. That's why here your correct answer should be what? 1. Random sampling is helpful as it is. So now students, why random sampling is helpful? Why we do it? A well-defined method of data collection, because it is a well-defined method of data collection. It is free from personal biases, reasonably accurate and reasonably representative of the population, all of these. So students, within the random sampling technique, what we do, we randomly select the participants for our study. That's why every participant within the population has the equal chances to participate in the study. That's why there is no any biases. Right? As well as we are going to randomly select the sample from the target population, it means that it will be reasonably accurate. As well, whatever samples we select from the population will be the representative of the population, right? Because there will be the more probability that the sample will be more representative of the population. So that random sampling is very helpful because it is a well defined method of data collection. As well, it is free from personal biases. As well, it is reasonably accurate and reasonably representative of the population. So that your correct answer over here should be what? All of these. Okay. The target population for a research has clearly distinguishable subpopulations. This ideal method of sampling for such a population is, now the target population is there for a research and it has clearly distinguishable subpopulations. Subpopulations means what? Whenever there is a target population and we are going to do the subgroups of that population. Okay, so this is the population and you do what? Subgroups of that population. So each subgroup is called as what? Subpopulation, or in sampling method technique it is called as what? Strata. Okay, so this ideal method of sampling for such a population is called as what? Simple random sampling, convenience sampling, judgment sampling, stratified random sampling. So students, this kind of a sampling technique for such a population is called as stratified random sampling, because in this sampling technique we have the target population and we make the subgroups of that population. Okay, and each subgroup is called as what? Strata. So from each strata, okay, what do? You randomly select the samples. Okay, so from this strata you randomly select some samples, from this you select randomly samples, from this. So this is nothing but what? A stratified random sampling. Okay, and that's from the target population. Here you can see there is distinguishable subpopulations as well, right? That's why this is nothing but what? Stratified random sampling. And whenever you do this random sampling technique from each strata, then you make up a whole group of these samples that you have selected randomly, and then you take all of these samples for your study. Okay, this is so simple. Within the simple random sampling you have a target population, and from target population itself you randomly select the sample. This is so simple. In convenience sampling, according to the researcher's convenience, he or she select the sample for his or her study. Okay, for example, if a researcher goes to the college on Tuesday, so on that day whatever students there will be available in the college, okay, so those students he or she will get participated in his or her study. He won't think about who is absent, okay, who will be there in next day in the college. He won't think about it, because according to his or her convenience he is going to select the students who are there in the college on that day itself. Okay, so this is called as what? Convenience sampling. Within the judgment sampling, that we also call it as purposive sampling. So basically researcher has a somehow purpose towards the sample, and because of that specific purpose he is going to select that specific sample for his study. Okay, and if you see all of these three options, then you will understand that there is no any kind of a distinguishable subpopulation from the target population. It will be available in only stratified random sampling. That's why here your correct answer should be what? 4. If the population proportion is unknown, the standard error of proportion is estimated by the formula where n is sample size, p is the probability of success, q is the probability of failure. So students, whenever there is a population proportion and we don't know the value of that population proportion, it is basically unknown. So in that situation, whenever we want to calculate the standard error of proportion, then what is the formula for that standard error of proportion? Whether it is square root npq, square root pq, square root np 1 minus q, square root pq upon n. So students, whenever you want to calculate this, then the formula for this is what? Square root pq upon n. Okay, so where n is the sample size, p is the probability of success, and q is the probability of failure. And in this situation, p plus q is equal to what? 1. Okay, that's why here your correct answer should be what? 4. So remember this formula for standard error of proportion. Okay, whenever population proportion is unknown. Which of the following is true? Now which of the following is true, the sampling error becomes progressively larger the larger the sample size. Sampling error becomes progressively smaller the smaller the sample size. The sampling error is unrelated to sample size. The sampling error becomes progressively larger the smaller the sample size. So students, here they have given you different statements relevant to what? Sampling error and sample size. That's why obviously there will be some relationship between sampling error and sample size. Okay, so what is that? So students, whenever you want to calculate the sampling error, then you need to what? You need to difference out. You need to subtract the population mean, okay, minus you need to do the sample mean. So what you need to do? You need to subtract the sample mean from the population mean. So this is nothing but what? Sampling error. And this sampling error occurs because of this difference. Okay, and that's why students, whenever there is very large amount of sample size, then in that situation obviously, you know, there would be minimum sampling error, and that's why whenever you are going to, you know, large the sample size, then progressively the amount of sampling error becomes smaller. Okay, that's why here your correct answer should be what? 2. The sampling error becomes progressively smaller the larger the sample size, because whenever you choose the larger sample size, then in that situation, you know, the difference between population mean and sample mean is going to minimize somehow, because the sample size is very large. There won't be any difference between population and sample. Okay, that's why students, the sampling error in this situation is going to become smaller. Okay, if level of significance, that is value of alpha, is 0.05 for a particular hypothesis test, we are saying that whenever there is a specific hypothesis test and the level of significance, that is the value of alpha, is 0.05, then in that situation what we are going to say? 5% is the minimum standard for acceptable probability. 5% is the risk we are taking of rejecting a true null hypothesis. 5% is the risk we are taking of not rejecting a false null hypothesis, none of these. So students, as we have seen earlier in this session only about level of significance, right? So students, level of significance means what? It is going to tell you exactly the probability, okay, whether, you know, you are going to reject the null hypothesis or you are going to accept the null hypothesis. Whenever this amount of level of significance becomes very small, then in that situation you are going to reject this null hypothesis and you are going to accept the alternative hypothesis. But now here the level of significance amount is what? 0.05. So it means that there is 5% risk, okay, we are taking of rejecting the true null hypothesis. Okay, so this means that there is 5% chance of making type 1 error which occurs when we reject true null hypothesis. Okay, so there is a 5% risk that we are taking of rejecting this true null hypothesis. This means this level of significance is equal to 0.05. That's why here your correct answer should be what? 2. Okay. What is a research design? Now what is research design? A way of conducting research that is not grounded in theory. A framework that outlines the way a researcher is going to collect data at every stage of the research and analysis of data. The style in which you present your research findings, example a graph, the choice between using qualitative or quantitative methods. Okay, so students, research design is nothing but a conceptual framework. Okay, it means that this is the outline of your overall research process. So research design is going to give you the idea exactly what type of research methods you are going to use in your whole research process. So here you are going to say exactly what type of data collection methods and what type of data analysis methods you are going to use in your whole research process. That's why here your correct answer should be 2, because research design is nothing but a framework that outlines a way a researcher is going to collect data at every stage of the research and analysis of data. Okay? Which of the following is not a measure of dispersion? So now from these options, which is the option which is not a measure of dispersion? Whether it is mean deviation, variance, standard deviation, mode. So measure of dispersion means what? A measurement of how your data point, okay, is spreaded in a whole data set. Okay, so if you see all of these options, then you will understand there is only one option which is not a measure of dispersion, and it is nothing but what? Mode, because mode is a measurement of central tendency. Okay, mode means what? The data point which has more frequency, okay, than other data points in the whole data set. Okay, that's why mode basically represents the central position data in the whole data set, and that's why this is nothing but a measure of central tendency, not a measure of dispersion. Mean deviation, variance, standard deviation, all of these are the measures of dispersion. Mean deviation is calculated by taking average of absolute difference between each data point and mean of data set. Okay, so basically whenever you want to calculate mean deviation, then it should be calculated by taking average of absolute difference between each data point and mean of data set. Mean of data set. Okay, so basically it measures how far on average each data point is from mean actually. So what you are going to do in this mean deviation is that basically you have the data set 1 to 10, and here it's basically mean should be what? 5. Okay, so from 5, okay, there are data points like 5 1, 5 2. So you are going to do this, 1 minus 5, 2 minus 5, then 3 minus 5, 4 minus 5, and all of these values whatever you will get, you are going to do the average of all of these values, and the average value of this will be what? Mean deviation. All of you getting? Variance is what? Variance is nothing but what? How your data points are spread out, okay, from its mean value. Are you getting? And variance is nothing but what? Square of standard deviation. Whenever you do the square of standard deviation, you will get the value of variance. Now what is standard deviation? Standard deviation again is what? The measure of dispersion, and it is calculated by taking square root of average of squared difference between each data point and mean of data set. Okay, basically whatever you have did here, 1 minus 5, 2 minus 3, 3 minus 5, you are going to do the squares of this. Okay, whenever you do the squares of this and you take the average of all of these, and after getting the average you are going to do the square root of that average. So that square root is nothing but what? Standard deviation. And standard deviation basically gives you the measurement of how spread out your data points are from the mean. Okay, that's why whenever you want to calculate the standard deviation, you are going to do the square root of variance. Okay, that's why here your correct answer should be what? 4. Dash represents a general principle that guides problem solving, though it does not guarantee a correct solution. So from these options, which is the option that represents a general principle which guides for solving problem, as well it does not guarantee a correct solution on problem solving. So whether it is insight, whether it is trial and error, whether it is algorithm, whether it is heuristics. So students, the correct answer for this question is 4, that is heuristics, because heuristics is a general principle which guides us on problem solving, but it does not give us a guarantee for correct solution of the problem. Okay, So heuristics is a general problem solving framework which can guide problem solving, though it does not guarantee a correct solution. It can be a thought of as mental shortcut that is used to solve problems. So basically heuristics is nothing but a thought, okay, of our mental shortcut, and that we basically use to solve the problems, and that's why it does not give us a guarantee that our solution will be correct. Okay, in a study of gender effects on career choice among emerging adults in a government college, the independent variable is dash. Now there is a study, and there we are studying on gender effects on career choice among adults in a government college. So in this study, which is the independent variable, whether it is age, whether it is type of college, whether it is gender, whether it is career choice. So students, there are two variables in this study. One is gender and another one is career choice. Okay, so here we are studying the gender effects on career choice of the adults in a government college, right? And that's why we are studying here the gender effects on something else. Okay, that's why here your independent variable will be what? Gender, because here you are studying the effects of gender on career choice, and that's why here you are changing the values of gender so that the values of career choice will automatically will change. That's why here the independent variable is what? Gender, and the dependent variable will be what? Career choice, because here you are changing the values of gender, and we basically change the values of independent variable in the study. That's why here your correct answer is what? 3, that is gender. The title of a formal written research report should be about dash words in length. Now students, the title of a formal written research report should be how much words in length? 5 to 15, 10 to 20, 5 to 10, 10 to 12. So students, title of formal written research report should be basically short and to the point, and typically it should be around 10 to 12 words in length. Okay, so it is very important to include all of the essential terms in your paper in the research report title, and should avoid unnecessary jargon and abbreviation in it. Okay, that's why here your correct answer is what? 10 to 12. This is your normal or expected word length of title of research report. Okay, sampling method that focuses on important subpopulations and allows use of random sampling techniques for different subpopulations is dash. Now students, from these sampling methods, which is the sampling method which focuses on important subpopulations and allows use of random sampling technique for different subpopulations. So what is that? Whether it is stratified sampling, cluster sampling, quota sampling, or accidental sampling. So students, now let us see first of all of these sampling techniques. Stratified sampling is the sampling technique under which we use random sampling technique. Okay, random sampling technique means we assign the participants randomly. Basically we choose the samples from the target population randomly. Okay, so in this sampling technique we have a target population. So from that target population we divide the population into subpopulations. Okay, and from that subpopulation again we select the samples randomly. Okay, in the cluster sampling again we have the target population. Again here we use the random sampling. Here we make a subpopulations from the target population, but we clusterly randomly use these subpopulations. Okay, in cluster sampling. Now the quota sampling. So this quota sampling is nothing but what? Random sampling technique. Okay, so this is so quota sampling is nothing but what? Non-random sampling technique. So this is non-random sampling technique, and here we have the target population and we make the subpopulations from the target population, but we does not randomly select the samples from the subpopulation. Basically here we choose the sample because of the certain characteristics within them, and we want those characteristics in our research study. Okay, accidental sampling is again the non-random sampling technique, and from this sampling technique basically researchers select the samples according to their convenience. So accidentally somehow if the sample comes in front of the researcher, then researcher accepts it in their study. Okay, so here they have asked you about what random sampling technique. That's why the two options, those are quota sampling and accidental sampling, will get what eliminated. So the remaining options are what stratified sampling and cluster sampling. But again they have asked you that the sampling technique basically focus on what important subpopulations, and they allow the use of random sampling technique for different subpopulations. That's why here your correct answer should be what stratified sampling, because in the stratified sampling you have the subpopulation, but from the subpopulation you randomly select the samples. Okay, exactly in this question exactly the similar thing is happening. That's why here your correct answer is what 1, not cluster sampling, because in the cluster sampling you are randomly selecting the subpopulations as it is. Okay, testing hypothesis is dash. Now what is testing hypothesis? Whether it is data analysis, whether it is data preparation, whether it is inferential statistics, or whether it is descriptive and statistics. So students, testing hypothesis is nothing but a formal procedure, okay, for investigating our ideas about the world using statistics. So testing hypothesis is nothing but a formal procedure through which we can investigate our ideas about the world using statistical what techniques. Okay, so let us see first of all of these options. Now let us see what is data analysis. Now students, data analysis is nothing but a procedure of inspecting, okay, the procedure of what inspecting, then cleaning, then transforming and modeling data to discover useful information and inform conclusion and support decision making. So basically data analysis is nothing but taking out the essential things from the raw data, and after those essential things we can make up the conclusion based upon it. Okay, now what is data preparation? Now this data preparation basically comes under data analysis. It involves cleaning, transforming and organizing raw data into formation that can be easily analyzed. So data preparation is the step which comes under what data analysis, under which we inspect, clean and transform raw data so that it will be useful for us for further analysis or interpretation. Okay, now let us see what is descriptive and statistics. So descriptive and statistics both are basically different words, but whenever you make it a single word, and it becomes what descriptive statistics. So this descriptive statistics is nothing but a branch of statistics which deals with collection. Okay, so it deals with what collection, then analysis, interpretation, then presentation and organization of data. So basically it uses summary statistics, then graphs and tables to describe data set. This is useful for helping us gain quick and easy understanding of data set without pouring overall of individual data values. So basically descriptive statistics uses whatever summary statistics is there, graphs will be there, tables will be there. So it uses these techniques, and they describe the data set by using these techniques, and it is very easy and quick understanding technique of the data. Okay, now the remaining option is what inferential statistics. Now this inferential statistics is another branch of statistics, but it uses samples to draw inferences about larger population. So whenever we want to draw the inferences about larger population, then for that purpose we use the samples. Okay, so whenever we use the samples for these purposes, then we are using what inferential statistical technique. Okay, so this technique is used to make educated guess about assumption using statistics with the use of sample data. Hypothesis testing makes an assumption about how true assumption is for entire population from where sample is being taken. So basically for this, what we do, we take the sample from the target population, and based upon this we make a assumption, okay, about the sample, and this assumption is nothing but what? Hypothesis. Okay, and we basically test this hypothesis by using inferential statistical techniques, and after testing this hypothesis we will get the conclusion of our result. And that's why testing hypothesis is nothing but what? Inferential statistics, because within inferential statistics we use the assumption statement, and we nothing but what? We basically test this assumption statement, and then after that we get the results. Okay, which of the following statements about the qualitative quantitative debate is incorrect? So here they have given us different options, and within these options they have given us different statements about qualitative and quantitative debate, and we need to identify the incorrect statement about qualitative quantitative debate. Okay, positivism stresses the importance of observable and observed facts in the accumulation of knowledge. Positivism applies to quantitative methods. Qualitative researchers often fail to recognize positivism as the epistemological basis of their work. It became equated with relatively crude and quantified methods. Okay, so students, positivism is nothing but a research approach, or you can say research perspective. So in this research perspective we think that whatever we observe in front of our eyes, so these observable things are measurable, and the things those are observable and measurable are nothing but a true facts in the world, and because of these true facts we can accumulate the knowledge. That's why basically positivism stresses the importance of observable and observed facts in the accumulation of knowledge. So this statement is what? Correct. Okay, positivism basically applies to quantitative methods, because within the positivism approach what we do, we observe and measure the facts, and exactly the similar things we do in quantitative methods. That's why it applies to quantitative methods. So this is correct. It become equated with relatively crude and quantified methods. This is also a correct statement, because positivism basically equated with relatively crude and quantified methods, because under which we think about that observable and observed facts are nothing but what? Measurable facts, and so that they are true in the world. So the remaining option, which is 3, is actually incorrect option, because though qualitative researchers does not recognize positivism as the epistemological basis of their work, but they recognize other approaches, okay, such as interpretivism, then constructivism or critical theory, which emphasize importance of understanding the subjective meanings and experiences of individuals and groups. Okay, and that's why qualitative researchers basically adopt alternative epistemological approaches, and those are what? Interpretivism, then constructivism and critical theory. And these epistemological approaches basically emphasize importance of understanding the subjective meanings and experiences of individuals and groups. And basically we want to understand these experiences and everything in the qualitative research, right? And exactly for that only qualitative researchers understand the epistemological approaches such as interpretivism, critical theory and constructivism. So the third option is incorrect about qualitative and quantitative debate. Okay, the term statistical significance refers to, now what is the meaning of the term statistical significance? Whether it is inference from representative of a normal population, analysis with positive results, inference that the results are unlikely to be due to chance, significance of the test used. So students, now let us see first of all what is statistical significance. Okay, so students, statistical significance refers to inference. Okay, basically it refers to what? Inference. And this inference is nothing but results of study which are unlikely to be due to chance. So these inferences are nothing but what? Results of study, and these results are to be due to, basically these results are unlikely. Okay, unlikely due to chance. So here the word unlikely is very important. Okay, so statistical significance are the inferences which are the results of study that are due to unlikely due to chance. So these results are not due to a chance. So the results are not due to a chance, and the inference of these results are nothing but what? Statistical significance. Okay, and this is determined by calculating p-value. So we can calculate the p-value for this, and this p-value measures basically probability that results of study could have occurred by chance. Okay, if the p-value is below predetermined threshold, basically 0.05, so whenever p-value is below 0.05, then the results are considered statistically significant, meaning that it is unlikely that observed relationship between variables occurred by chance. That's why whenever you see all of these options, then you will understand that statistical significance is nothing but what? Inference that the results are unlikely to be due to chance. That's why here your correct answer should be what? 3. Variability refers to, now what is the meaning of variability? Exact midpoint of the distribution, spread of a scores around the central tendency, convergence of scores towards a line, geometrical distribution of the scores around the central point. Okay, so students, variability means whenever there is a whole data set, and for the whole data set there is a central tendency of that data set. Central tendency means the central position data. So variability is nothing but what? How much your data points are spread, okay, around the central tendency of this data set. That's why here your correct answer should be what? 2. Variability refers to what? Spread of a scores around their central tendency. And if you think about the measurements of variability, then they are what? Standard deviation, then range, then variance, etc. Okay, all of these are nothing but what? Measurements of variability. Which of the following is against the research ethics? So from these options, which of the option is against research ethics? Debriefing, confidentiality, deception, informed consent. So students, as we know that research ethics are nothing but the rules and guidelines and legal guidelines for the researchers to conduct the research, right? And there are lots of research ethics, but there is a one option which is against the research ethics, and this is nothing but what? Deception. Okay, now let us see what is the meaning of deception. Deception is against research ethics, and it occurs when participants are misled about nature or purpose of research, and it is generally considered unethical because it violates principle of informed consent, which requires that participants be fully informed about nature and purpose of research, okay, and freely agree to participate. Basically, deception means that whenever researcher misled, okay, the participants about the nature of the study. Okay, and this is very important. Whenever participants does not know everything about the nature of the study, and after that they participate in the research study, and whenever something bad happens to the participants, then obviously it happens because of the researchers faulty behavior, and this is nothing but what? Deception. And that's why deception is comes under the thing which is unethical, and deception is unethical because it violates the principle of informed consent. Okay, informed consent means that researcher have to give all the information about the research study to the participants. They should get the you know, sign on the informed consent from the participants that they know everything about the nature of the study, and after that only they agreed to participate into the research study. So these things are really very important, and that's why deception is against research ethics. And all the other options, those are debriefing, confidentiality and informed consent, are the research ethics. Okay. A systematic forecasting method that involves structured interaction among a group of experts on a subject without disclosing the identity is called dash. Now from these methods, which is the method which is a systematic forecasting method, and in this method it involves structured interaction among a group of experts on a subject, and here we don't disclose the identity of the experts. Okay, whether it is focus group method, interacting group method, nominal group method or Delphi method. So students, within the focus group method there are the participants in a single group, and those participants have the common characteristics, and that's why they are in a single group. Okay, so these participants give us their opinion about the specific topic. Okay, fine. So this is what focus group method. Now what is interacting group method? So within the interacting group method, okay, there is a group decision making process that involves bringing together group of individuals to discuss problem or issue and reach on a consensus. So within the interacting group method there is face to face interaction of the participants, and that's why here everyone knows the identity of the participants. So this option gets what? Eliminated. Again focus group option gets what? Eliminated, because here again there is common characteristics of the participants in a group, and there are no any experts in the group, there are only participants, and they give us the opinion about the topic. Now what is a nominal group method? Now nominal group method is a structured method. Okay, and there is a method for group brainstorming that encourages contribution from all members, and it is used to generate and prioritize ideas and solution to a problem. So basically nominal group method is a method which is a structured method for a group, and because of this method this is a, you know, brainstorming technique for all the participants, and again here there are the participants, not the experts, right? That's why this option gets eliminated. And because of this nominal group method we can, you know, generate and prioritize ideas or solutions to the problem. And the remaining option is what? Delphi technique, which is your correct answer, because within the Delphi technique, okay, we gather expert opinions and reach consensus through series of structured questionnaires and feedback rounds. And here the anonymity of participants allows them to express their opinions freely without being influenced by opinions of others in group. So within the Delphi technique we basically gather the opinions of the experts within the group, and here we disclose the identity of the experts so that experts can give their opinions freely. Okay, that's why here your correct answer is what? 4, that is Delphi technique. Content analysis is very common for. Now content analysis is common for which type of research? For identifying gaps in research, or for identifying social bias in research, or for identifying themes in a qualitative research, or for validating data on age. So students, content analysis is nothing but a research method, or you can say it's a data analysis method which is used to identify patterns in recorded communication. So whenever there is a recorded communication, so in that recorded communication, if you wanted to, you know, analyze the patterns in it, then content analysis is really a helpful tool to all the candidates. It can be applied to various forms of text such as books, newspapers, magazines, speeches, then interviews, web content, social media posts, then photographs and films, etc. It can be both quantitative which focused on counting and measuring of data, and as well qualitative, which focused on interpreting and understanding the data. Researchers use content analysis to find out about purposes, then messages and effects of communication content. Okay, researchers also make inferences about producers and audience of texts they analyze. It is used in fields such as marketing, then media studies, anthropology, cognitive science, psychology, and many social science disciplines. So overall, content analysis can be two types, qualitative and quantitative both. But in qualitative research, it is focused on interpreting and basically analyzing the data, and basically it is very useful to understand the recorded communication. And that's why whenever you want to identify the themes in a qualitative research, content analysis is a very common method for that. That's why here your correct answer is what? 3, that is identifying themes in a qualitative research. The recommended optimum size of participants for focus group interviews is. So students, now what is the recommended optimum size of participants for focus group interviews? Whether it is 8 to 12, 5 to 7, 15 to 25, 25 to 50. So students, focus group interviews are useful whenever you want to take interviews from a group of individuals who has common characteristics, and they give you the opinions on a certain topic. Okay, and that's why it is called as focus group interviews. So students, the recommended optimum size of participants for focus group interviews is basically 6 to 7. Okay, or between 6 to 7, basically it is the optimum size of participants. Okay, so basically whenever the group is very large, then in that case each participant does not have a chance to contribute, and as well they should not able to give their opinions as much as possible. And that's why focus group interviews has the number of participants between 6 to 7, not more than that. Okay, that's why here your correct answer is what? 2, that is 5 to 7. Okay, basically in the focus group interviews, the size of participants should not exceed 10. Okay, it would be a very large participants in a group in a focus group interviews. A statistical technique showing relationship between two variables. Now what is the name of that statistical technique who shows relationship between two variables? Standard error, correlation, regression, standard deviation. So students, the statistical technique who shows relationship between two variables is called as correlation coefficient. Okay, and that's why here your correct answer is what? Correlation. So students, correlation coefficient only shows you the relationship between two variables, that is the association between two variables. It does not show you exactly what is the cause and effect relationship between the independent and dependent variables. There are 3 types of correlations. First is perfect positive correlation, under which both the variables are positively associated with each other. Second is perfectly negative correlation, under which the variables has a negative relationship between them. So if the size, or you can say if the measurement of one variable increases, then the value of other variable decreases. And third one is zero correlation. It means that there is no relationship between the variables. That's why here your correct answer is what? 2, that is correlation. Standard error occurs when there is a variability in the population parameter. Okay, and if you want to measure the standard error, then for that you need to calculate the deviation from the mean value. Okay, so basically how much your data points are deviated from the mean value is nothing but what? Standard error. Okay, regression is nothing but what? Regression analysis, which shows you the cause and effect relationship between the independent and dependent variable. Standard deviation is nothing but how your data is distributed in the whole population. Okay, Triangulation. Now what is, students, triangulation? Whether it is a one method for increasing validity of findings, a statistical test for identifying invalid data, recording of data in the presence of village elders, a strategy followed for involving participants in an FGD. So students, triangulation is nothing but a mixed research method, and it is used to increase, basically it is used to increase the validity and reliability of research findings. Okay, so we do this by combining multiple sources, then multiple methods, then multiple investigators or theories to study single phenomenon. So in a triangulation we use multiple sources, then methods, investigators, theories to study single phenomenon, and it is used to cross check or verify information, and that's how we can increase the validity and reliability of the research findings by using triangulation method. There are different types of triangulation. First is data triangulation. So in data triangulation we use multiple sources of data to study the same phenomenon. Then investigator triangulation, in this we use multiple researchers to study same phenomenon. In theory triangulation we use multiple theoretical perspectives to interpret same data. In methodological triangulation we use multiple methods to study same phenomenon. Okay, that's why here your correct answer should be 1. So triangulation is a method for increasing validity of findings. Okay, which of the following is not considered for collection of qualitative data? So from these options, which is the option that we don't use, okay, to collect the qualitative data, whether it is narratives, personal histories, structured schedule, then participant observation. So students, whenever we see the qualitative data, then whenever we want to collect the qualitative data, then for that we can use interviews, then we can use focus groups, we can use observation, and different documentation analysis as well. Qualitative research methods are designed to capture richness and complexity of human experiences, and they often involve open-ended, unstructured data collection techniques. Whenever we want to collect the qualitative data, then the qualitative data exactly comprises about the data which is relevant to the human experiences. All of you getting? And that's why it involves basically open-ended, unstructured data collection techniques. Okay, and that's why students, whenever you see all of these options, then you will understand that narratives, personal histories, and participant observation, all of these are basically the qualitative data collection techniques. But the one option, that is structured schedule, is not a qualitative data collection technique, because in a structured schedule, okay, we basically ask fixed set of questions. Okay, basically this fixed set of questions are in predetermined order. Okay, and it does not have any flexibility, basically it does not have any flexibility or deviation from script, and that's why it is nothing but a structured technique, and structured technique we don't use in qualitative data collection methods, and that's why here your correct answer is what? 3. Which one of the following research methods is best suited to study the processual aspect of political organization? Whenever we study, or whenever we want to study the processual aspect of political organization, then which of these research methods is basically we can use, or basically very best suited method? Key informant interview, participant observation, focus group discussion, extended case study method. So students, whenever we want to study the processual aspect of political organization, then for that we need a qualitative research method. Okay, qualitative research method. Okay, so whenever you see all of these options, then you will understand that all of these are the qualitative research methods, but you need to select only one option. Key informant interview is the data collection method under which we interviews the key informants, and key informants are nothing but the persons who has the information about the topic on which you basically we want to study. And that's why by using this type of technique we can understand the opinions of the persons, we can understand the information about the products and events, etc. But we can't study the processual aspect of political organization by this method, so this option gets eliminated. Participant observation is the technique that we use in ethnography research. Okay, so under this technique basically what we do, we involve in basically any kind of a society or culture, then we participate with the members who are there in a society, and then apart from that as well we observe the activities that they do. So this also is the technique under which we can understand the human experiences, behavior, etc. But we can't understand the technique or any kind of a procedure, so this option gets eliminated. Focus group discussion is the technique under which we can ask the questions to a group of individuals who has the common characteristics, and they give you their opinions about the particular topic. Okay, so in this as well we can understand the opinions about the people, but we can't understand the processual aspect of political organization, so this gets eliminated. So the remaining option is what? Extended case study method is your correct answer, because extended case study method is the method that we use in ethnography, but here based upon pre-existing theory we do the case study, and by using this extended case study method we can study the processual aspect of political organization. That's why this is your correct answer. Thematic analysis of data is associated with. Now thematic analysis of data is associated with which type of research? Clinical research, nursing research, PRA techniques, qualitative research. So students, thematic analysis of data is nothing but a method of analyzing qualitative data. Okay, this is the analyzing method of qualitative data, such as interview transcripts. Researcher closely examines the data to identify common themes, then topics, ideas and patterns of meaning that come up repetitively. It emphasizes identifying, analyzing and interpreting patterns of meaning within qualitative data. So basically thematic analysis is an analytical technique which is useful in understanding the texts in the qualitative data, and that's why thematic analysis of data is basically associated with what? Qualitative research, and that's why this is your correct answer. Which one of the following best illustrates modernism? Okay, so which of these basically options illustrates modernism? Rational thinking, cultural movement, process of change, shading of tradition. So basically students, cultural movement best illustrates modernism. The meaning of modernism is that improvement in the techniques which are associated with arts, then culture, etc. And that's why modernism is associated with the improvement in the arts, culture, etc. in the back 19th and 20th century in the western area of the world. Okay, and that's why whenever there is a cultural movement, okay, then it illustrates that it is modernism. The meaning of cultural movement means you are improving the culture, arts related things. Okay, that's why it is associated with what? Modernism. That's why this is your correct answer. Qualitative research is less concerned with. Now qualitative research is less concerned with which of these options? Prediction of causal relationships, description and explanation of relationships, description of individual experiences, all the above. So students, as we have seen about qualitative research in this session. So qualitative research is the research under which we collect the qualitative data, and this qualitative data is nothing but concerned with the human experiences, or basically what human does, how human feel about any kind of a thing. Okay, and that's why qualitative research basically explain or describe the relationships between the variables, between the individuals. As well, qualitative research, describe the individual experiences. That's why qualitative research is less concerned with prediction of causal relationships, because for predicting the causal relationships we need quantitative research, because in quantitative research we do the analysis of the data by using statistical techniques. Okay, and that we can't do in qualitative research. And as well, we can't generalize the results of qualitative research to the other situations which can we do in quantitative research. Understand? That's why students, here your correct answer is one, that is prediction of causal relationships. Okay, which is the very less concerned thing with qualitative research. Which one of the following methods is most useful for kinship studies? So students, for kinship studies, which of the following method is most useful? Observation, case study, interview, genealogical. So students, kinship studies are the studies under which we study the family relationships, or basically we study how a family grows. Okay, and for that a scientist whose name is W.H.R. Rivers in 1910 used genealogical methods. Okay, so these genealogical methods introduced by W.H.R. Rivers in 1910, and by using this method he collected data regarding family relationships and constructing family trees to understand kinship patterns within group. Okay, that's why here your correct answer is what? 4, that is genealogical. Which of the following is not a step in the research process? Now they have given you different options, and from these options, which is an option which is not a step in the research process? So whether it is problem definition, whether it is problem correction, whether it is research design, formulation, whether it is report generation and presentation. So students, research process basically involves a lot of typical steps, and we need to do all of these steps, like problem definition, then problem formulation, then literature review. Okay, then research design, formulation, then research methodology, under which we describe the, you can say, data analysis techniques and data collection techniques. Then your last step will be your results section. After that you make up your report, and then you present your reports. So from these options the correct answer should be 2, that is problem correction, because problem correction is not a step in the research process. Okay, to identify the underlying causes of the problem, the research should dash. Okay, so students, whenever you need to identify the underlying causes behind any kind of a research problem, then what should researcher do? Conduct a problem audit, define the management decision problem, assess what past research was done for the firm, assess competitor success. So students, first of all, let us see what are these all options. Conduct a problem audit. Now what is problem audit? So students, problem audit is nothing but the comprehensive examination of problem to determine its causes and potential solution. Okay, so by doing the problem audit you can basically examine your problem, so that you can determine its causes, and as well you can determine its solution also. Okay, it involves gathering and analyzing information about problem, its context, and any relevant factors that may be contributing to it. By doing it, researcher can gain better understanding of problem and develop effective research plan to address it. Okay, Define the management decision problem means what? You are defining the decision problem relevant to the management. Assess what past research was done for the firm. So here you are going to determining the past research that was done for any kind of a firm. And assess competitor success means what? You are assessing the success of the competitor, but here you need to identify the underlying causes of the research problem, right? And here there is only one option, that is problem audit, through which you can determine the causes and also solutions of the problem, right? That's why here your correct answer should be what? One, that is conducting a problem audit. Deductive reasoning. Now what is deductive reasoning? The logical process of establishing a general proposition on the basis of observation of particular facts. The logical process of inducing individuals to reason. Then the logical process of linking propositions via the ladder of abstraction. The logical process of deriving a conclusion from a known premise or something known to be true. So students, we have seen deductive reasoning before also, right? Deductive reasoning is nothing but a deductive logic that we use in a deductive theory, okay? So within this logic, basically what we do, basically we have a premise. Premise means what? A theory. We have a theory or we have a basic kind of a abstract, and based upon this theory or premise we make up the hypothesis, and then we test this hypothesis by using certain statistical techniques, and then we decide whether we need to accept this hypothesis or reject this hypothesis. That's why deductive reasoning is the logical process of deriving a conclusion from a known premise or something that is known to be true. Because within the deductive reasoning, whenever this premise is true, then obviously you will get this hypothesis test results also true, and only after that your reasoning will be valid, okay? That's why here your correct answer should be what? 4, because deductive reasoning is the logic under which you go from top to down, and it is also called as top to down process, okay? Which of the following is true about secondary data? Now they have given you different options relevant to secondary data, and we need to find out an option which is true about secondary data. So whether it is collection time is long, quality of data is high, cost of collecting the data is low, it is easy to access. So students, as you know that secondary data is the data that we collect from the person who has already collected the primary data for other purposes. So basically secondary data is the data that we gather from different individuals, okay, or the second hand individuals, okay? And that's why it is pretty you can say easy to collect the secondary data, because it is already available in lot of places, and as well you don't need that much amount of cost to collect the secondary data, because whenever you collect the primary data, then it is actually the first hand data, and first hand user basically collects it, and that's why first hand user has to do lot of things to collect the primary data. He needs to pay lot of amount of money to collect the primary data, but this is not basically relevant to what? Secondary data, because secondary data is pretty much lower in cost than collecting the primary data. That's why here your correct answer should be what? 3, that is cost of collecting the data is low. Actually it is easy to access also, but it depends upon certain situations what kind of data is that. Okay, so here your precise and correct answer should be 3. Okay. Dash is particularly useful whenever research questions relate to describing a market phenomenon such as frequency of purchase, then identifying relationships or making predictions. So from these research options, which is the research type which is basically useful whenever we need to describe the market phenomenon such as frequency of purchase, then identifying relationships or making predictions. So here we are describing some kind of phenomena. It means that you are describing the characteristics which are under in the research question. Okay, so whether it is descriptive research, exploratory research, causal research, identifying research. So within the descriptive research, basically students, we describe the phenomena under the study. So here by describing the phenomena means we describe the characteristics of the phenomena. Like for example, in this question they are describing the market phenomenon such as the frequency of the purchase, identifying relationships or making predictions. So all of these are nothing but what? Describing the characteristics of the market phenomena, and exactly you are doing this in this descriptive research. That's why here your correct answer should be what? 1. Descriptive research mostly answer to the question how. Okay, how. Exploratory research is the research type under which you basically collect the data for the further research, because exploratory research is the research type which is done to collect the primary data that we need to know before taking the lot of further main research process. Okay. Causal research is the research that can be done to identify the cause and effect relationships between the variables, and identifying research is not any kind of a research type under research methodology. Okay, so here your correct answer should be what? 1. A or an dash consists of a sample of respondents, generally households, that have agreed to provide information over an extended period. Now from these options, which is the option which consists of a sample of respondents, and these respondents are generally the respondents under households, and they have agreed to us to provide information over an extended period of time. So whether it is focus group, panel, hypothesis, research mix. Now students, this question is relevant to what? Data collection technique or the participants that we basically take under our study. So what is focus group? Now focus group is the group of individuals, okay, which has common characteristics, and that's why they are in a single group. And this focus group contains the individuals who gives their opinions about a specific common topic, okay, and we get their responses. And panel is nothing but a group of individuals or a individual itself which gives you the information over an extended period of time, okay, on a specific certain topic. Hypothesis is nothing but the predicted outcomes of the research result, and research mix is nothing but what? Basically the meaning of this word, you are mixing the research methods. So this actually is not relevant to this question. Hypothesis is also not relevant to this question. So here your correct answer should be what? 2, that is panel, because here the most important word is extended period, and whenever certain amount of individuals or respondents gives you the information over an extended period of time, then they called as panel, and mostly these respondents are generally from households. That's why here your correct answer should be 2. Which of the following is not an advantage of using the survey method? Now from these options, which is the option which is not an advantage of using the survey method for collecting the data? Ease of use, reliability, cost, validity. So students, as you know that what is survey method? Within the survey method we ask the questions to the respondents, and respondents gives you the answers, and you can do surveys through many platforms. You can do it through internet also, or you can do it physically, you can also do it by interviewing. So there are lots of options. So if you see survey method, so it is quite easy to use, right? It does not actually take any difficulty. Okay, that's why it is ease of use. It is one of the advantage of using survey method. It is reliable method. We can be reliable on it, and many researchers use this method. And also it is cost effective, but cost effective also depends upon certain survey method types. Whenever you are doing the survey methods on a large scale of population, then obviously you will need lot of cost. But if you are doing this on a small scale of population, then you won't require that much amount of cost, right? So also cost is also an advantage of using this survey method. So the remaining option, that is validity, right? So this is your correct answer, because validity is not an advantage of using the survey method, because validity means the accuracy of the information that you get, as you are asking the questions to lot of individuals, so you can't be basically get the accurate responses from those individuals as well. Here there is no direct interaction between the researcher and the respondents. That's why researcher also can't predict the answers, and basically the validity of the survey method depends upon the questions that researcher is asking to the respondents, as well how respondents are replying to them. Also the design of the survey method matters, and the most important thing is the representative of the sample. This is the most important thing. Okay, so here your correct answer should be what? Validity. Experimental design is the set of experimental procedures specifying the test units and sampling procedures and all of the following except specifying. Now whenever you design an experimental research study, so whenever you design any kind of a set of experimental procedures, then you specify some test units, then you specify some sampling procedures and also other things. But here there is one option that you don't specify whenever you are setting up experimental procedure. So what is that? Independent variables, dependent variables, plan for data analysis, how to control the extraneous variables. So students, all of you know that you require independent variables as well dependent variables in your experimental procedure. So obviously you will set them. So these options are getting eliminated. Also you need to understand how you can control the extraneous variables, because it is also very most important part in experimental research design. So also this option is getting eliminated. So the remaining option is for basically plan for data analysis. Okay, this is the thing that you don't specify whenever you set up experimental procedures, because within the experimental design basically you set up the things that you are going to experiments on them, like independent variables, dependent variables, controlled environment, then test units, sampling procedures, how you can control the extraneous variables, etc. But you don't set up the plan for data analysis, because whenever you are finished up by doing the experiment itself, then you go for the data analysis technique. Okay, that's why here your correct answer should be what? 3. The most complex of the primary scales of measurement is the. Now from these scales of measurement, which is the measurement which is most complex scale of measurement? So whether it is ordinal scale, interval scale, ratio scale, nominal scale. So students, we have seen all of these scales of measurement earlier also. We have seen that nominal scale is the primary scale of measurement, and it is very basic scale of measurement under which you can only label and give the names to the variables, and you can only classify the variables into different categories. Okay, then second scale is ordinal scale, under which you can classify the variables, also you can give the orders to the variables, rankings basically. Interval scale, you can basically make up the intervals of the values of the variables, and also you can give the numerical values to the variables, but here there is no absolute zero to the variable. Okay, in the ratio scale you can do everything. You can classify the data, you can give the order to the data, you can make the equal intervals of the values, and also there is absolute zero characteristic is there to the variable. Okay, that's why ratio scale is the most complex of the primary scales of measurement. Okay, that's why here your correct answer should be 3. So here you can do addition, subtraction, also you can do multiplication, division of the variables, but you can't do them in the interval scale. In the interval scale you can only do addition and subtraction. In the ordinal scale you can't do these techniques. Nominal scale is the very basic scale. A or an dash is the basic unit containing the elements of the population to be sampled. Now from these options, which is the option is the basic unit which contains the elements of the population that are to be getting sampled? Hypothesis, theory, sampling unit, coefficient alpha. Now all of you know that what is hypothesis, what is theory, what is sampling unit, what is coefficient alpha, right? And I want to give this question to homework to all the students, and all students give me the answer in the comment section. Okay, let us see who are giving me the correct answers to this question, because we have seen this concept earlier also. So if you have any doubts you can also ask me in the comment box. So students, thank you for watching this session. So if you have any doubts you can ask me in the comment box.